Fright Fights invite you to VoidCon. VoidCon is the gathering of horror writers, filmmakers, artists, musicians, and creators, a counterculture of contourism, occulted and shadowed. This is not the convention at which you'll find purveyors of Cthulhu plushies and Scream posters. This is a convention at which you'll find forbidden things, subversive and dangerous ideas, horror. Screenings include Scooter McCrae's underground short St. Frankenstein, Derek Carey's horror anthology Hole in the Wall, and a screening of the Troma classic Redneck Zombies, hosted by Troma Now's Fantastic Disaster Piece Theater. Special guests will include Brian Keene, Joe Koch, Charlene Ellsby, Paula D. Ash, Burial Grid, OF Siri, Weird Punk Books, Clash Books, Filthy Loot, and more to be announced. Get your tickets today.
Boils and ghouls. Turn out the lights. And keep the popcorn coming. Because it's time for another episode of Fright Fights Podcast. Fright Fights Podcast. Get ready for your gore gang. Tyler Cavan, Chris Lax, and Mike McKinney tackling horror news, reviews, and fight for their survival. Coming to you from the Fright Fights Fear Lodge. Get ready to sink your fangs into a battle that will make your blood run cold. This is Fright Fights. Fright Fights.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Chris from Fright Fights Podcast, and I got a twisted tea for a twisted me, and I've got my homeboys here, Mike and Tyler, and we're going to get started here soon with a battle of three films that have a franchise of only one sequel involved. But before we get started with that, we're going to talk a little bit about some horror news.
Hell yeah!
Sounds good. Dude, I'll tell you what, we're back, brother.
Horror news. What kind of horror news has been going on in the world of horror? Let's see.
So this one isn't really like newsworthy, and I haven't seen it in any news headlines or anything, but you've seen recently where they announced that Chucky Series 3 will be airing on Sci-Fi and USA Network this year, right? And then Season 3 will also be airing on Peacock streaming service. But everybody kept asking, like, where's Chucky Season 2? Season 2 was never released on Peacock. It was never on streaming. Well, without making any announcements or anything, they quietly released Season 2 onto Peacock. So if you haven't seen Season 2 and anticipating for Season 3, now's your chance. Go to Peacock streaming service, download the app. You can watch Season 2 as well as Season 1 to get caught up in time for Season 3 to hit.
Oh, nice. I actually never watched the first season or the second. I've seen the first episode. It was good. Very good. I just never really got into it. Are you caught up, Chris?
I haven't seen Season 2. I just really logged on to Peacock 2 days ago and saw that it was actually added on there for the beginning of September to stream. And I was like, well, crap, I haven't seen the second season yet because it was never released except on TV airings, and I couldn't watch it, week by week. So finally, I'll get a chance to watch it. I'm going to try to watch it before Season 3 comes out.
Yeah, well, another thing I think that got announced recently was it Season 3 or Season 4 of Creep Show? It's going to be coming out.
Oh, yeah.
Season 4.
I can't wait to see that because I actually really love those. I mean, they're hit or miss. Some of them are better than others, but overall, I think it's a fantastic series. It's really kind of what put Shut on the map. I feel like that and Joe Bob Briggs both together, everybody seemed like they were subscribing just for those two shows when it first, kind of blew up as an app and became popular. So I'm excited to see what they continue to do and kind of give that series some love because it's been 2 years, at least 3 years since the last one came out. And I thought they were done with it. So it's nice to see.
Yeah, 2 years. COVID really put a hit on that where they had to cancel filming during the third season, or slow down during the third season.
Mm-hmm.
But that season actually brought one of my favorite episodes. At least I think it's from season 3. It might be Season 2 that it's from. It's the one that is the Evil Dead episode where it looks like almost like a Bob Ross type video show being made, and like then the Necronomicon gets open. I can't remember which season that's from. I was talking to Mike about it at work the other day, and he hadn't seen it yet. And I was like, man, if you get to watch at least one episode from that show, check out the Evil Dead episode because it feels just like it came from one of the Evil Dead movies, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, that was my
Yeah.
favorite episode that season. It was definitely the one you can tell you put the most love into. And I remember before I even watched it, somebody like put online, they were like, you've got to see this Evil Dead episode of Creep Show. And I'm like, what the hell? They have an Evil Dead episode now? Log on, watch it. It's absolutely insane. I can't believe like how fun it was. Like it just truly is a great, great, great segment.
Yeah, and I was really let down too because in like the preview for that same season showed this guy holding a sphere from Phantasm. And he's like holding it up, and it shows somebody like getting ready to be
I
killed
remember
by it and everything. And I was like, oh my gosh, not only do they have an Evil Dead episode, but they have a Phantasm episode. I was like, this is awesome. And then you learn that it's not actually a Phantasm episode. It's just somebody who collects horror merchandise, and they have like a replica, and they're holding it in their shop. And I was like, well, that kind of sucks, but it was, oh well. They got the Evil Dead one going, so I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
You know what I've been
Heck yeah.
playing recently as well? I forgot to mention was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game. Have you guys had a chance to play yet? I mean, it just came
N-
out.
No, but how is it?
It's
I'm
actually
interested.
pretty. It's pretty good. I know Chris at least is a fan. What is that? Oh, is that?
This is a board game.
That's awesome. I don't. Yeah, that's dude. That's awesome. How do you
Sorry, I
play?
didn't mean to interrupt
No,
you.
no, it's good. I'm just kind of like I was like looking at that. I'm like, wait, you have some kind of like weird limited edition of this like game, but you have the board game actually. How do you play that exactly?
I don't know. It just says the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Slaughterhouse. Apparently, you have to move your characters around the board and escape from the victims that's moving the same time as you are, I guess. But this came out right before the video game was released,
Mhm.
and I thought it was kind of weird timing that they would release this before the video game, maybe trying to trick people into purchasing it. I don't know. It's a hefty price. This thing costs like $70, but
Jesus.
Wow.
still really
Wow.
cool though.
It looks beautiful. Yeah, it's great. Even before I get started on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game, I will say that's by I think it was Funko. It looked like on there, and
Yeah.
Funko's been putting out some amazing horror stuff. Like they put out that game, they put out the Scream game, which the Scream game's great. You download an app, and Ghostface calls you like every like
Hmm,
30
I
seconds.
remember that.
Yeah, he like targets each player one by one, and you have to. It's great, and it's on a time limit, so you have 20 minutes before time runs out, and Ghostface kills everybody in the game, and it's fantastic. It actually uses your cell phone, which I thought was very innovative. But anyway, Texas Chainsaw Massacre game, it was good. It's not great by any means. Graphics are good. The maps are kind of they're okay. It's very reminiscent, obviously, of the Friday the 13th game. I think it's no better or no worse. I think it's fine. Um, there's this weird thing you have to do where you feed grandpa blood, and that helps you detect victims. Like, so you can play as part of the family, or you can play as like the victims. I play as a family mostly because that's how I know how to play better. But as you're like going around there, you have to like collect buckets of blood, and you're sitting there just like feeding grandpa blood, and you have to find where he's at, and just do it. I mean, it's kind of interesting, but overall, it's a fun game. I mean, it's all right. Um,
Cool.
it's a little scary. I mean, it has some nice like little horror moments in it. It feels very you kind of go down below the house a lot and you're navigating these chambers, and I'm sure if like you're a victim, that would be terrifying because as the other players are like hunting you down, it does get pretty like dark and sinister. It's pretty cool. But
Hmm.
I would recommend it if you like the Friday the 13th game. I know Chris is the biggest fan of that game. You definitely would love Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Too bad we can't play together because
For the
Chris has next.
multiplayer, yeah. Yeah, I mean, golly.
God, Chris
Unbelievable.
had to buy
Me
you.
and Mike can play. Me and Mike can play together. Mike's got an Xbox.
What? So now I'm the odd guy out. What do I do now?
Yeah, I was just giving Chris a hard time. I knew he had an Xbox, but I wanted to give him a hard time. But yeah, Tyler, you have to get on board, man. You got to get an Xbox.
Yeah, we all need to play together. That'd be fun. But let's chat movies. It's been a while. We've obviously been in what fucking hibernation now for 4 months. So coming
Take a
out
little
of
break.
we've seen like tons of movies and we've been very busy. But besides that, I mean, I can't even remember back the last movie that we discussed on the show that we watched, but I know recently, me being an A24 fan, and I know you guys are just the biggest fans of A24. How do you, that's something, okay, that's something I want to address. How do you guys feel necessarily about A24 horror movies? Because I think that it's very subjective. I know Chris is that big.
So, so me and Mike were going through it one day at work. We were watching a bunch of different horror trailers together that we hadn't seen yet. And this was right when Talk to Me like debuted their trailer. And Mike was like, "Yeah, let's watch the Talk to Me trailer." As soon as it starts and we see the A24 logo pop up, me and Mike both look at each other in disgust and just went, "Oh God."
I
And we were
almost
done with the
stopped it.
trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were done watching the trailer. And then the entire internet was like, "Hey, Talk to Me is actually a really, really good movie. It's actually really scary with dark undertones to it. Check it out, regardless of whether you like A24." And then, like, every single person was saying the same thing. So then I started watching the trailer again, and I started getting like reading more reviews about it, and every single review was positive. And I was like, "Now I got to check this out. This seems like it's really, really cool." Haven't seen it yet though.
Well, I mean, okay, so it's
So
not A24's best movie by any means in terms of horror. People love it just like it's the best, but I personally have my favorites. But I'll let Mike go real quick because I want to hear what he thinks.
I will say this. I was not going to see this just because it's A24, but all the rave and talk about it on social media kind of drew my interest. So it was actually my wife and I, our anniversary. And then we went to dinner and we didn't know what to do. And I was like, you know what? Let's go to this movie. I'm kind of interested in it. So she saddled up and went to the movie with me. So we went to see Talk to Me. Me hating A24 in general, I was just going in there for to kill 2 hours. But I will give it this much. It's a great film. It's creepy. I wouldn't say it's like I wouldn't say it's like a drop dead like scare of your life, but it's bothering and it keeps you kind of interested throughout the whole movie. I thought the movie was shot well. I thought the actors and actresses were great throughout the movie. Me personally, I love the ending. It it just kept you wanting more. And to me, it really didn't feel like an A24 other A24 movies because I lose my interest like kind of midway through the A24 movies in general. But this kept my attention. It kept me kind of on the edge of my seat. Um, the thought of not knowing what was going to happen made it worthwhile. And I thought Talk to Me was a pretty phenomenal movie. I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think something is interesting about A24, even outside of the film, Talk to Me, is the fact that they pick up a lot of indie filmmakers' movies. So they're not necessarily a production company that will make movies directly from their studio. They'll sometimes commission outside, sources, or they'll go to festivals and stuff like that. So this was actually Talk to Me was not made for A24. I think that might have been something that kind of made it seem a little bit different. It definitely had its vibes of A24. And of course, like online, the people are always like, this film has A24 vibes. What does that mean exactly? And to me, I think it's definitely subjective. But I mean, there's definitely traits that A24 uses to kind of give that vibe. But I think my main point is this was made by YouTubers. Raka Raka. I don't know if you guys have watched them on YouTube. I haven't. Apparently, they have like 14 million subscribers. But they basically got a bunch of Australian grants and they use their YouTube money to put aside, I think it was like $5 million almost. It's like $4 or $5 million. And they made this film completely independently in Australia. That's why they all had Australian accents. It was an Australian film and they just put it in Australian festivals as YouTubers. And A24 was there, and I guess they received the phone call the next day after the festival, and A24 was like, "What can we do to get your movie? Because we absolutely would distribute this for you 100%." And they accepted them, and they were absolutely shocked. And they called back and said, "We think we can get it in over 3,000 theaters across, the nation." And they were like, "This is much bigger." They thought that it would be released on like 10 screens. Like they thought it was gonna be a direct to VOD kind of thing. So the fact that
Wow.
A24 is able to see this, as YouTubers, never made a film before, pick it up, release it wider than, any, like a lot of other horror movies doesn't even get released that wide. So I think that was definitely a great feat to undergo. But as a
Yeah,
film,
that's
go,
weird because like the YouTuber you just mentioned, the Raka Raka, I've heard the videos or I've heard the name before and I've actually seen some of their videos, but I'm only familiar with what they do as far as certain things. I've never seen anything else besides these videos. It's like uh, a grouping of this guy that dresses up like Ronald McDonald and he does wrestling shows and he does like really violent and gory wrestling, like those death matches where they like hit each other with like light bulb tubes and stuff like that. That's
dude.
the only ones that I've seen is like those videos with him dressing up as Ronald McDonald, and they go through and do all these wrestling things with him. At least I'm thinking that's the same thing, but or same channel.
I think it might be. I haven't really watched any of their videos either. I did see the making of, and they kind of like showed a couple clips from their YouTube videos, and that kind of seemed like what they kind of did. They have tons of subscribers. It's a very like viral YouTube channel. So they're definitely been doing this for a while. So I'm glad that they were able to finally. I knew they had like a dream to make a horror movie, they said. So I mean, it didn't work out once for them because guess what? The second movie was greenlit what, a week later or 2 weeks later. So the fact that we're already getting a second Talk to Me after the first one was so successful, it's insane. And it's crazy how it kind of like just changes, like how fast your life can change as you have you're a YouTuber with a dream, you make a film, it gets noticed. Next thing you know, you're making the sequels, you're making other films, you're becoming like this crazy Hollywood, in demand, next like
Yeah.
Ari Aster, let's say, I mean, there's just tons of people you can talk about. Like, I mean, at one point, Toby Hooper, same kind of thing. But overall, I have to say that Talk to Me was very, very good. I loved the idea. So we didn't really set this up for the mic. The hand. So what it
Yeah.
is kind of like a party trick. It becomes so basically all these friends gather together, and it's kind of like a take on, I guess you would say, the dangers of social media, or kind of like making fun of people on social media, because what they do is they get all their friends together and they take this hand, and what you do is you hold it and you say, "Talk to me." And when you say that, you see like an apparition, like a ghost comes and finds you. And the next part of it is you say, "I let you in." And whenever you say, "I let you in," the apparition of the ghost that appeared in front of you enters your body. And it makes you do like really erratic stuff, or you do some like really fucked up stuff. And next thing you know, like they're all taking videos, they're all posting to Snapchats or doing their social medias. Like they're like, oh, they think it's the funniest thing ever. But what happens is if you stay in there too long, they want to stay. That's kind of like the gimmick. So this one girl is struggling with the loss of her mom. She does the whole thing, and her mom supposedly comes through one of her friends to her. Not one of her friends, it's actually the little boy.
The boy.
I forgot the boy's name, but it's like this little boy that is, it's like his sister wouldn't let him come to the, it's a very long story. I feel like I have to tell to like get you to understand this.
Yeah.
But basically, there's like this party they're having, and this little boy wanted to go with his sister, which was a friend of this girl who had lost her mom. They get to the party, they're like, "Well, I don't think it's a good idea that you play the game Talk to Me and do the whole thing because you're young, you're vulnerable." And he's like, "Why can't you just let me be part of you, like one of you guys? Like, what do I have to be like the kid in the corner watching you guys have fun?" So they're like, "You know what, 40, 50 seconds max." And then the mom comes through and starts talking to the girl that has the loss. And the next thing you know, I mean, they're in there for what, 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
shit starts going wrong. But the end of this is so there, you get to see the apparition that's haunting this little boy. And it's so like fucking like weird and crazy. There's
Yes.
some like
Yes.
spooky stuff that happens in the very ending. I don't want to give it away because
Man.
it's still fairly new. I want Chris to see it too. But I'm telling you, the ending, the very first time I watched it, I was like, yeah, the ending was good. I get it. I went to go see it a second time, and knowing what happens at the end the second time and watching back through the entire film and seeing what was coming, it really kind of connected and it made a lot more sense. And I really did enjoy a lot of the ongoing themes throughout, because what happens is Well, I can't give it away. But basically, what happens is absolutely you can see it coming a mile away. And if you know what's going on, like throughout the film, it just blows your mind how like superb it is and how like very
Yeah.
particular it is. And it's just beautifully done. It's not necessarily art house. It does have some art house qualities to it. It was well acted. It was well shot. You probably, I mean, it kind of needed subtitles because their accents are pretty thick in Australian. But overall, I have to just, I have to just definitely say it was one of the better films I've seen this year. It may have been my favorite horror film of the year, which I know it's very, very early. And what Scream 6 was pretty good too. But I mean, it was like a solid 8. And I gave it a solid 8, and it's a very
Yeah.
high 8. Like at one point, I was like, should I give this a 9? But I
Yeah.
think it's an 8. I think that that's fair. I think it was, well deserving of that.
No, yeah, I agree with you. I thought the way it was shot, and especially how it ended, um, I guess I gotta be careful how I say this. It opened your eyes up, like how everything happens and it unfolds throughout the movie. Um, but there's a part in this movie that is so disturbing, and it starts and it's about with the little boy after he gets like consumed by this demon. Um, it's what the demon does to the boy's body. It's just unfreaking believable. But
Mm.
there's a part where I got to be careful. There's a part of what this demon's doing to this boy. But the boy looks up with the demon inside, and I think he looks at his sister or the friend, and he's laughing, and like he's just smiling, and that smile, that dead stare, and the laughing with the demon doing what they're doing to the boy's body is just I was like frozen. I was like, this is disturbing. This is so disturbing. But I'm right there with you. The movie was done very well. It is a very, very thick accent, but I didn't really mind it either because I was so entertained with just their actions rather than their words. And I was very intrigued by the hand itself and the game. Um, but a very entertaining movie. I ended up giving this movie a 9 just because
I'm right there
it's
with you.
a rememberable movie. It stood out for me, and not too many movies like that have make an impact on me now. But this movie really did. It was very good.
I think that we definitely could say at the very end of it, the one thing that I really loved was, when they were at shows at the hospital and she's seen everybody and then the
Yep.
light starts shutting off and then she sees her dad there. That's not giving necessarily like details away, but that how the lights were turning off and then losing that and seeing the doors close in front of her, that was absolutely heartbreaking. And
It
that's
was.
kind of like something you want to say too, is like, this film goes back, goes past horror. It kind of
Yeah.
it's sad. It's a very sad film about loss and grief. And how
Yeah.
far would you be willing to go to try to reconnect with somebody that is like a deep, love of yours, or even a loved one, or a father, a mother? And I think it just shows desperation. I mean, it really does. So
Yeah.
it was great. I'm actually trying to find a picture of this demon to show Chris because it's just
Oh
so
man.
it's whack. It's so like so crazy. I'll have to look it up and send to you guys later. I mean, for Chris especially, because I think that he would. It's just
Yeah.
it's great. It's really well done. It was all practical, all of it. So that's even
Yeah.
another. So
Yeah. Well, if you guys want to know exactly how much me and Mike don't like A24 films,
I'm pissed.
and I think Mike's the same level as me. So before we took our hiatus for the summer because of vacations and everything, we had a scheduled episode plan to do an A24 episode where we chose 3 movies. We were going to watch 3 movies and review the 3 movies. I still haven't watched all 3 of those movies.
I won't.
Come on, y'all. What have you got? Okay, wait. Hereditary. Since we're not gonna have this episode, let's. Did you guys watch Hereditary?
I did, yes.
Yes,
I
you
I
loved
I
it.
I
I
watched it,
no.
How did you
and I
not
didn't
like?
care for it. I did not care
Oh
for
my
it.
God, we're about to get canceled.
Okay,
This we're about to get.
first of all, one of the things that bothered me the most about this movie was the filmmaking side of it.
It's so
The
good.
fact,
True. True.
no,
True.
no,
It's just the
no,
best you've ever seen, right, Chris?
no. So there are moments when, and this comes from like the filmmaker side of me where I didn't like it. So there's a scene specifically where
Oh God.
it
No.
cuts from one scene to the other, and this is during the time period when somebody is going to call and tell them about the death of some of family member. I can't remember. It's been months. That someone dies and they're calling them, and the dad is supposed to get the phone call and hear the news, right? So as a viewer, we already know what the news is. So we're just witnessing somebody else get the news. So the camera cuts from someone making the call to then it's like the camera's inside the room and it slowly pulls back away as you hear the phone ringing. And I mean, slowly, like for like 15 to 20 seconds. And then finally it reveals that the phone is sitting next to the dad, and the dad is like reading a newspaper. And then the dad picks the phone up and it cuts away again. It's like we did not need 30 to 40 seconds of a camera pulling back to reveal a phone for someone to pick up when we already, as viewers, know what the news is. It was just unnecessary. It just to me it was they didn't know what to do. They were just like we have really cool ideas for shots, but we don't know how to utilize them for the movie. Um,
But the film was 2 hours.
also,
What about the other hour and 59 minutes? It was genius, right?
no, it was boring. It was boring. I hated the ending. I hated
Yeah.
everything about the movie. The main woman is the most annoying mother aside from like the Babadook, um, annoying mother characters that I've seen. She makes these really weird faces throughout the entire movie of every emotion, no matter what she's doing. If she's sad, happy, non-emotional, whatsoever, she's always going like when she gets ready to speak. I know viewer, like people listening, can't see my mouth here, Tyler, but I want you to watch me as I'm doing this. If she's gonna say, "Tyler, I'm home," she goes, "Tyler, I'm home." Like she does these really weird facial expressions through everything. And I was
Will you just do
so
that one more
fucking
time
annoyed by
for the
her. No,
audience that
absolutely
can't
not.
see you?
Her scene though, that was in the they were having dinner and it was to the son. What was his name? Crap. But it was over Charlie. It was the grief of Charlie's death and where she was killed, and they were all kind of like having this tension. And Tony Collette's character just absolutely erupts and goes to this whole entire speech. I think that was great. I love that one. That was actually enough to I felt like she deserved an Oscar nomination. I know a lot of people was like, let's campaign for Toni Collette to get an Oscar. Yeah.
I will
I
tell
thought
you,
that was
I met
annoying.
her too, Millie Shapiro. She's fantastic. I love her so much. She's great. Best movie ever. No, it's not the
oh
best movie
man,
ever. I gave it a solid. I think it was it a 10? I think I would probably give it close to a 10.
her head hit a
He's
tree.
a
Is
9
basically
easily.
what happened.
Tyler, I'm pretty sure I'd have to go back and look, but I'm pretty sure I gave this movie a 4.
There's no well, I mean,
I
I
think
will
I forgot to
say
rate it.
there are a few there is probably out of everybody who's watched it,
I think I forgot to rate it.
I'm pissed. Mike, you need please watch it. Come on.
I did. I saw it. It
Watch it.
was
Okay, great. You loved
no.
it, right?
I forgot to rate it. It
Oh
was
my
bad.
god.
I did not. I did not enjoy it. I did not enjoy it. All right. So I did not know this. So I was looking up just A24 movies in general, and I did not know this was an A24 movie. It's non-horror related, so I won't talk about this much. But it's called Uncut Gems. Great movie. Did not know that was an A24. Has Adam Sandler in it. It's like a serious role.
Yeah,
Um,
Crafty Brothers.
so yeah, had no clue that was by A24. That is a great movie. So two movies out of this whole pack of crap, like Uncut Gems, and then Talk to Me. Really good. Uh,
I'll
I'm trying to
describe
see.
Hereditary seems like one of those movies that is made for people who are not horror fans to watch it and say, I watched a horror movie and it scared me. And even though they're not fans of horror movies, they claim they're horror fans because they saw that movie.
Well, no, okay, so here's how I feel about it. This is my hot take on A24. So
They're made for people who are not fans of horror films.
I've been a horror fan since a really, really young kid. So probably like, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, I truly became a horror fan. So what, 12, 13 years before A24 even became a company, I loved horror. And the way I seen it, I grew up with the films that were mostly released in the 80s. I loved the Nightmare on Elm Street series. I loved 90s slashers. I remember watching Scream as a kid and, absolutely were terrified by it. And people were always talking about it and stuff. And obviously, as we see these new adaptations of, let's say, Scream come out or Halloween come out or any kind of like film from like legacy characters, they're having to reinvent them. Because the things that were working back in the 1980s and 90s as film and horror, they're not going to work today because times have changed so much. It wouldn't make logical sense a lot of times. So I feel like as this new Gen Z comes out and starts finding what they love and their passions with film and what kind of genres they're into, when it comes down to it, A24, they're bringing these very super sleek new age type horror films that haven't really been done before, but it's using very modern ideas and themes. They're using art form and all this kind of stuff. They're using non-character actors, very specific palettes, all this stuff to kind of like draw the next generation of like horror fans. Now, of course, these horror fans may love some of the older stuff too, but just to get them into the genre and get them into it, I think A24, because I mean, if you think about it, like back in the 80s, like what were people talking about the most? They were talking about, Nightmare on Elm Street. They were talking about the Halloween series. They were talking about all these crazy, you know, popular franchises, Friday the 13th. Today, we see discussions online about Hereditary. We see discussions about The Witch, Midsummer, all these like A24 horror movies. So personally, I've embraced it. I still love the older style of horror movie. I love modern horror movies. I love the horror movies coming out of Blumhouse. I watch Blumhouse films. I watch A24 films. I mean, any kind of horror that comes out that I would consider to be good, I've kind of just went with it. But it's different. I know the A24 isn't necessarily the horror that we would think like of like, when we think horror, sometimes it doesn't feel like A24. But I think that moving forward, this is kind of be what gets kids into horror and opens them up to it.
I'm all for that. I'm glad that people have something to watch as long as it is horror films and it's getting people in the horror genre. I'm happy for it, but I'm just saying that 99% of the stuff that they release is not for me.
What about Under the Skin? You like Under the Skin?
Never seen it, had no interest in it.
You like The Witch?
Hated The Witch.
No way.
Yeah.
Okay, so you watch Green Room. You watch Green Room. We watched Green Room together. That's not
Green
the
Room
same
is the
horror.
only movie that they've released that I actually liked. Besides, no, I think that might be it. That might be the only movie that I've seen that I like from him.
The Black Coat's Daughter. That was good. That was Oz Perkins, Anthony Perkins' son. A Ghost Story. I don't suggest you guys watch that. You will hate it.
Isn't that about like someone that dies and kind of follows the person around, like the family as they grow apart or something like
Well,
that?
it's like it's
The
like
sheet, yeah, yeah, yeah,
there's a scene where he eats an apple pie for like 6 minutes. But again, a ghost story is slow cinema. It's not meant to be, and there it's a thing. Slow cinema is a thing. So like the guy who made this was making it to be a very slow, very
yeah.
paced film like that. I was
Well,
waiting for
guys,
Chris to say something about this.
no, I think I'm done with talking about A24. Like, I don't
I'm
have
oh,
anything good to say
okay.
about
Wait,
it.
wait. You know what? Okay, how about X and Pearl? You guys haven't watched this, have you? You need
I've
to.
not seen them. No.
Okay.
I am interested. I will say this. I am interested in seeing X and Pearl. Um, those seem like movies I might like, maybe.
Listen, Mia Goth, I think you guys will dig it. We'll move on, but I do want to say that X and Pearl, directed by Ty West, think about his films in the past. Like obviously, he's made some like really, really good horror movies. I know a lot of people love The Innkeepers. I love The Innkeepers. This seemed like a 1970s kind of like softcore porn slash slasher film. Felt very Florida. It felt very, it was Killer Grandma esque. I don't know how, Mike, I think the best I could do to describe it, Barbarian. Imagine
Okay.
Barbarian, but if they were making a film and it was set in the 70s, it has the same kind of vibe of like being bonkers.
Okay.
It's bonkers, is what I should say.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think you guys should check it out. I think you might like it. But
Yeah, I'll
I
definitely
need to
check it out.
ask Chris about something else that I don't know if he's gonna like or not, and it is the Haunted Mansion.
Yep. So I took my daughter, who was 7, to see the Haunted Mansion. She had never seen she's seen like bits and pieces of the original Haunted Mansion. And I was really excited because I want to get her into, the horror genre and watch some scary stuff. And I thought, this would be something to kind of ease her into it as well. Because up until then, we've only watched maybe one or two movies in theaters that was not an animated film. So I was really looking forward to taking her, and I actually kind of wanted to see it myself. I was very let down with it because the movie tonally it's very dark, but it's not interesting. Like everything that happens, there's just no real interest in it. It's just very bland. Mid you use whenever we did the Evil Dead remake, it was just very mid. Like you don't really care about any of the characters, you don't care about any of the ghosts, you don't care about anything that happens to them. The comedy is very strange in it too. It's nothing that's going to be like laugh out loud funny. It's just these really one-liner jokes that happen, and maybe you smirk once or twice, and that's about. I think I laughed out loud one time, and it was for something extremely stupid. There's a scene where Danny DeVito's character is on a bed or on a couch. I'm sorry, he's on a couch, and the couch gets um, like thrown out the door and down the steps. And as it's going down the steps, like one by one, Danny DeVito is like "Da-da-da-da-da-da-da," as he's trying to like talk to somebody. And I just, for some reason, that just made me chuckle. I don't know why. But other than that, like the comedy in it, it's supposed to be like a comedy, comedy first and then scary later, right? But the comedy just wasn't there. It wasn't funny. And like I said, everything was just very, very blah, to where you just didn't care about anything that happening in it. And it's like 2 hours, 2.5 hours longer. So it was like a really long movie, I think. At least it felt like it. I know it was really long compared to usual. My daughter said she liked it, but at the same time, she kept asking every 20 minutes if she could leave and go home. So I don't know how she really felt. What did you think about it, Tyler?
I think I agree. The runtime was a little over 2 hours. I think maybe if it was like an hour and a half, it may have been a little bit more successful. But something I want to make a particular note of, as you mentioned, is the comedy. Because this obviously was made as kind of like a family kind of gateway horror. I think it does a great job of being a gateway horror because it kind of was scary to be a Disney film.
Yeah, it was pretty dark, like I said.
I can't believe they released a PG-13 Haunted Mansion film. I think that was kind of crazy. And going into it, I was like, is this going to be a little bit more intense than I thought? And I mean, by any means, by the horror fan that's been desensitized like us, we didn't really probably see it as that scary. But if you really think about it, like it's kind of like your daughter was pretty scared, wasn't she? At times.
Some, not really. It was mainly sounds that she's really scared by, and not really like what she sees.
Yeah.
So there wasn't much of like audio that was scary. So there was a couple times whenever like they like was alluring to something happening, and she was like covering her ears because she didn't know she was going to hear something that she didn't want to hear. But
Right.
that really never really happened. Didn't span out to anything.
Well, the Hatbox Ghost, I thought the Hatbox Ghost himself was pretty intense. Like that last like 10-minute scene, especially with him. But comedy, back to that. It tries to be, like you mentioned, really funny and it's using very modern comedy terms. So like it's using like these cheap kind of like almost product placement-y kind of style of comedy. I remember one time Tiffany Haddish was just playing the sidekick, is sitting there with the entire family, and they're like, we're gonna have the seance, and we're gonna try to bring, we're gonna try to talk to what's in this house and see if they'll leave, kind of thing. And they sit down and she's like, write on this notebook that I bought 30 minutes ago from CVS. And it's comedy like that. And it doesn't really land. Like they kind of threw in that they always this extra mile, like I'm going to Costco kind of thing. And that's, I mean, like a couple of them was like kind of like, you would smile at, but a lot of them it didn't land. And it wasn't only the comedy, but it actually expanded to just even the characters. Like we have this character that's dealing with loss and, you know, losing a mom in this film. It definitely didn't show. There wasn't really a lot of emotion to it. I was like, I don't really care about these characters enough because they didn't really have any development. So we have a 2 hour film here with no capability to develop a character past general kind of just like, hey, here's our character, here's what their backstory is, kind of thing. I didn't feel for them. There was a love story kind of going on. I didn't feel for the love story. I wasn't excited that they were together at the end. The comedy was trying to be funny. I didn't really laugh that much. So everything, it had everything. They were throwing out the screen, and really none of it stuck. Like there were moments where like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. Oh, I kind of feel for that. Oh,
It
that's
was like a checklist. They had a checklist and they had like hours and they had or minutes separated down a list and they were like, okay, minute 10 we have to have a joke. Minute 15 we have to have a scary image. Minute 20 we and it was like they continued that on throughout the entire movie. And it just everything felt forced. Everything felt just very product placement, very I don't know, like it was supposed to be there without the storyline. It was like you're watching something knowing you're watching something when it's not a movie's not supposed to be like that. You're not supposed to feel like you're just sitting there watching something when you're watching a movie. You're supposed to feel captivated by the story to where you feel like you're in the story. And that was never ever once that feeling that I got while watching the Haunted Mansion.
Yeah, it was a bit stale. I think that's a really good term to describe it as well. It just did not have that. It didn't have anything going for it. And at the hour and a half point, I was just like, it should be ending about now. And they had an entire they were still planning this big escape. They were still, trying to fight the ghost. And I'm like, man, how long is this gonna last? Way too long, especially for a kids movie if they were trying to do that. Now I will say, fans of Disney, any Florida listeners or anybody who loves going to Disney, I heard it was very, very close to the Florida attraction, Haunted Mansion, which I think that's kind of cool. And I mean, me being familiar with Haunted Mansion, I know that it did seem like it had pretty much every little piece that was supposed to be there, more than the 2004 movie with Eddie Murphy, which was probably just as bad to me.
I
But
think I like it more.
no way. See, I can't say I like either of them. I would put them about the same level. I think I gave
Well, true, yeah. Like I don't really care for either of them, but if I had to pick which one was a better movie, I would probably go with the one with Eddie Murphy. I think the new one has really good special like visual effects and special effects in it. Like those are really, really well done. But that's all it has going for it. The Eddie Murphy movie is more captivating with characters. I think you like the characters a little bit better, but the visual effects department and stuff just isn't as good as what the new one is. But both of them still just aren't that good of a film.
Yeah, I have to agree 100% on that. I think I gave it a 5 out of 10, and that's where I think it would stand.
Yeah, I gave it a five as well. Yeah, just I could recommend it for people to view with their kids as kind of like a gateway horror, if that. But I also didn't really care for it that much either. So it's kind of like in the mid range. Like it's not awful, but it's not good either.
I think it'd be more fun to watch during October. I kind of am scratching my head why they released it in July, whenever it seems very much like a Halloween style. So I think that honestly, they may have been releasing it in July to hold it for Disney Plus in October. So I honestly would be shocked if it wasn't on Disney Plus by Halloween. So anybody
Yeah,
who wants to watch it but doesn't want to commit to buying it or renting it or something, I would just wait until around Halloween time and you'll probably be able to see it for free on Disney Plus. And that's the only way I'd recommend watching it for sure. You haven't
yeah.
seen it yet, have you, Mike?
No, no, I have not seen it. I saw the original, and what I can remember the original, I introduced well, no, I yeah, I introduced Remy to for that route along with some of the Goosebump movies, but it wasn't bad. Yeah, I'll watch it. And if it comes out on like Disney Plus, I'll definitely watch it. It's probably not a movie I'll go and pay at the theaters though for it.
I think Remy might like it. I think it's definitely geared their age, demographic. Um, but definitely I would not go out of your way to try to see it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
What else have you guys
Yeah.
watched? I know we're trying to cover a large span here.
Well,
Um,
I watched the movie on Tubi, and it was called The Lost Campfire Tale. Or yeah, The Lost Campfire Tales. And guys, if you get a chance to check this out, fucking don't. Because it is absolutely awful.
oh, it must have been
Um,
about A24.
Oh shit! Get the hell out of here! I'm done. Wait,
Tyler's
Lost
pissed.
Campfire Tales.
Tyler,
The
don't like it.
Lost Campfire Tales. So
I've had enough to hear about A24. You know what? Let's just not talk about. We're talking about A24 right now.
So when it comes to like these really, really low budget movies, we're talking about friends getting together at their in their backyard or at their, family's house or whatever, and making a movie. There's certain things that I really, really like about those, and there's also certain things that people can do that make me just fucking hate those type of movies. This one does both. So it's very, very like kids getting a camera from Walmart and making their movie, right? Making their own thing. Some of it was taken very seriously, and some of it was taken very, very like they don't care like they're making a movie at all. They're goofing around, joking around. And there's even moments of the movie where it's supposed to be a flashback, and on the sides of the video, it's like the camera, like you're watching a 35 millimeter print roll through a camera lens, where the like you keep seeing the camera like lens or the film strip play through the actual projector, and it's on both sides of the video, and it's like very distracting. It's very hard to watch the movie with these things keep scrolling down each side of the video. And then the movie itself, like in certain scenes like these flashbacks, these characters are not taking anything seriously. Like these people, like guys dressed up in wigs to pretend to be girls, like pretending to be like the actual like female characters. And then we get to like the actual serious parts of the story, and you have like an actual serious, like almost like it's just basically a Friday the 13th ripoff, where it's a guy in a hockey mask who kills people, and he's killing these little kids and these teens at this family house. Some of that is taken really serious, and some of it is taken really, really jokey, and like they don't care about anything. And that's where like the blend of it is, where I like the aspect of these people making this very, very low budget movie about a killer trying to kill these people at this house, and then I hate the part of it where they're not taking anything serious. They're goofing around, people wearing wigs when you can clearly tell them that it's wigs. And I don't know. I ended up giving this movie a two, simply because of the joking part. Just because that's one thing I can't stand is when somebody gets the chance to make a movie, and with that chance, they completely just don't care about nothing at all. And that really bothers me. But I think Tyler, you're pulling this up here. Are you gonna watch the trailer too?
No, dude, is this the movie we're talking about? Is this
Yeah,
the right
yeah,
one?
yeah. That's it.
Look
It,
at this
right, like
poster though. How could you not look at that? Oh, look, is this what it is right here?
yes,
This is what the whole thing's like.
Oh, Jesus. I
no,
thought
no,
this was
no.
like a. Oh, I thought this was the movie.
Yeah, this is the movie, right?
Yes, yeah. That's part of the movie. Yes, but there's like
Oh
the
my
the main
God.
the main story is a backstory about the killer,
You didn't watch the whole
and
thing, did you?
I did what?
You didn't watch the whole thing, did you?
I watched all 53 minutes of it.
Chris, what the hell are
Oh
you
my
thinking?
God.
Were you crying? Look at
I'm
this.
watching
Look at
this and
this
I'm
poster.
already wanting you to turn it off.
It's
Oh
like
my God.
yeah, I've never seen anything like this in my entire life. Now, Chris has shown me some really, I mean, sometimes I'm surprised whenever Chris comes to me with a movie and I put it on, he's like, well, it's just really, really low budget. It takes it to a new level of low budget. Like I'm
Oh
almost,
yeah.
but this,
I know, and
I'm never,
you have to admit that whenever I say that a movie is when I give a movie like a rating of one, two, or three, you know that I'm basing it off of whether or not I can stand to ever watch that movie ever again. So if I give a movie a one, it's something I would never ever watch again. It's something I'll never recommend anybody to ever see. If I give it a two or higher, then you know that it's at least got some type of redemption quality about it, whether it be like one line from the movie. So if you're saying a movie's bad and I'm like, you haven't seen some of the stuff I've seen, this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit, every time I think that Chris has sent me the worst movie ever made, somehow every single time I see another one, it's like it can pop. He's like, I'm like, I give this a 1, and he's like, I gave it a 3. I'm like, how? It's literally the worst film ever made. And then Chris looks at me and says, I've seen way worse films than that. How?
I believe it now.
And
I
then
believe
yeah,
it.
now we watch this, and somehow it continues to get worse. And Chris, if you don't recall, back whenever like maybe like 10 seconds ago, Chris gave this a 2. And I'm looking
Yep.
at this and saying, is it even a 1? Could it be a 1? So
Not even
he's trying to
rated.
say, oh, I've seen much worse films than this. There's no way.
No, this looks awful.
And
But listen to this. At least for a majority of this movie, they tried. They tried to make something.
They
Okay?
tried. They
I'm
tried when they woke up. This is
I
awful
have
looking.
seen movies where they have not given a literal fuck about what gets captured on film at all. I've seen literal bloopers in the movie. I've seen people mess up lines and repeat the same line over again in the take of the movie. The
Chris, they
editor
have a
couldn't even
schedule.
take that out.
They have
So
2 days
this
to make this film.
they did what they could with this movie, and I give it a 2 because I've seen a lot worse.
There's no
But I
way.
don't
God,
recommend on watching it.
get out of here, Lex. I can't trust you anymore.
Me and Mike's taking this over now.
This is awful. That's one movie I won't even
Well,
watch.
our next episode, this movie's in it. So
No, no. Honestly, we've watched maybe like what 10, 15 seconds, and I've already seen enough. I already know everything it's about.
I just looked at the poster and I'm done.
Yeah, the poster, I do want to say before we move on, the poster looks like they took the Friday the 13th hockey mask from like a weird, like blindly made clip
like
art.
Party
And then,
City, like
yeah, and they like stretched it out like vertically to make it like fit, but it didn't fit. And they were like, we don't have time, just put it out there. And that was the poster.
Submit it.
there's a scene in the movie, and I don't know if this was a part that they were trying to take serious or if they were joking around. But there's a scene where the killer is trying to find this kid, and he's hiding in a truck, and the killer opens the door, and the kid gets out of the other side of the truck and runs around like in a circle, almost like like if you're trying to play tag with somebody and you like run behind a counter and you're like at this like stowaway where you're like you can't get me because I'm on this side, but if you start to move, they move, so you keep going back and forth around the same table. It's like that. They kept going around the truck like 4 or 5 different times because he couldn't get away from him. Like
I'm surprised they could hold the
God.
truck in the budget. I thought they had to do a cardboard cutout. But uh,
hey, you remember Sock Monster, don't you?
that was, I mean, genius though.
Starring Tyler Cabin. It was a great movie.
Yeah, obviously, like I mean, like that was Oscar nominated short film. Let me get up here because I think that I know Mike, what else have you seen? Because I don't know how far to go back because I think I might talk about a movie, but I want to bring up let you have another one first if you want.
Uh, I watched Cobweb.
Oh, dude, no. Yeah, I'm glad that you're mentioning this. I want to hear. What do you think?
So Cobweb. 75% of the movie I really enjoyed. The last 25%, the revealing of the of the demon or the monster in the movie was a huge letdown. Um, I really enjoyed the storyline. I thought it started out very well. It had some pretty big actors in it. I'm pulling it up right now.
It's a kid that he hears stuff in like his bedroom wall, right? Or something like that.
Yeah, so let me pull this up.
When I think of the movie Cobweb, like I haven't seen it yet, but when I just hear the title and I saw like the poster art, I kept thinking it was gonna be like a giant spider movie.
No,
You know what it reminds me
it
of?
has it, it has a twist in it. It's really like one of these movies that you think like God, I don't want to give it away because a lot of people haven't seen this, so I really won't go too far into it. But there is a twist in the middle towards the end that that's kind of throws you off, and you kind of understand why these individuals did what they did. and then to keep their son, I guess, safe in a way. But their parents were really fucked up, anyways. They were like really messed up people. Have you seen it, Tyler?
I haven't seen it yet. No, I want to.
Oh, okay, okay. Oh, okay, okay.
Did you rent it
So
on
basically,
VOD?
no, yes, I rented it on Prime. So it's a story about between like an 8-year-old boy and he hears a knocking at night on his bedroom wall, and basically it's a real dark, sinister secret that the parents are keeping from their son.
Yeah.
And the parents keep blowing the son off like there's you don't hear anything, it's your imagination, keep quiet. Well, every night at like 3 in the morning there's a knock sound. So eventually he gets enough courage to go to the wall and says, who is this, or what's going on? And you hear a voice. It's a voice of a female. And they kind of create a bond of trust in a way. And then this voice puts the thought process into the little boy like the parents are evil. And the little boy then kind of like investigates to himself or on himself of like, why is this girl living in our wall? Like, what's going on? The parents are really weird. And like it, I think the movie focused on the parents of being very odd to throw a twist towards the middle of the end that you kind of expect, but then kind of don't. It kind of throws you off, but it's very well shot. And I'm awful with describing it without giving things away, so I'll kind of stop it there. But it was a disturbing movie. It was shot very well. It's a very dark and dreary movie. Um, and like I said, when I say it's 75% really like 75% of the movies that's done very well, it's the revealing of the monster in the movie that it's almost kind of like a CGI face, but like, God, what's the best description? All right, best description: Halloween H2O, the CGI Michael Myers mask, for
Oh,
example. You know, the body is a human, but the face is like CGI. You know, it just throws everything off. Um, that's what really ruined the movie for me on that part. But still, even with that in it, it was still done very well. I think everybody should see this. I think it's a very good hit. I think it's a very good movie. It has the guy, the actor from the boys. What's his name? Anthony Starr. He plays the father. Does very well. I'm a huge fan of him, anyways. But the little boy in the movie plays a very well, a very good part. But overall, it's really new and it's really fresh. So I'm not going to go too far into it without giving away secrets. But definitely go see it because I gave this movie a 7 out of 10.
oh wow, yeah. You know what it reminds me of kind of in terms of the vibe, it reminds me of a movie called Possum. I think it was like from 2018. It became super popular on TikTok, but it did have like a creature that used a weird amount of like CGI and stuff too. I
Yeah,
haven't seen Cobweb, so I can't necessarily make that comparison, but it does seem like one of those like viral kind of like TikTok-y kind of,
it's
alien
really good.
movie.
It's really good. Like there's some scenes in it. Like God, there's a scene where he wakes up and he's having a nightmare, and his bedroom door's open. It's really dark, and he looks down at the hallway, and he sees his mother staring like with glowing eyes, and like she charges at him through on his bed. Then he wakes up real quick. But it's a terrifying scene that even I jumped because I watched this by myself downstairs, all the lights out, and I was like looking over my shoulder on this part. But this movie is a it movie. The movie reminds me of. Has anybody ever seen Case 49?
Yeah.
Where okay, so that's with the little girl that is supposedly locked in their door. Am I getting that right?
Yeah.
Case 49.
It's
Okay, so it gives off the Case 49 vibes in a way.
Mhm.
So you think one thing, but it's a twist, and there's something completely opposite in this movie, which I really enjoyed. So Cobweb does that very well. It holds your attention and your focus towards the parents. Like I said, 75% of the movie, and then there's a big twist at the end. So definitely worth it. I enjoyed this, and it's one of the better movies that I've watched horror wise this year. So I kind of put it into my top five, six of this year so far.
That's amazing.
Yeah, really
Definitely
good.
gotta check it out. I really want to see it for sure. Well, I have a couple more, but I'm gonna save them for our next recording because I have an endless supply of movies to talk about. So we could be here all night talking about movies, but we got a show to do. So I guess we'll take a break. Do you have any more, Chris, you wanted to talk about first?
No,
Maybe
I'm
next
good.
time. All right, sweet. We'll take a quick break and we'll come back with our horror with only one sequel.
Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. There's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
Welcome back, guys. We are here for our main show. We're ready to talk about horror with only one sequel. So I actually got this idea personally whenever I heard Eli Roth talk about how he would never make a third of a film. He'd only make a sequel because he felt like the third film felt convoluted to become a full franchise. So I think it's really interesting to kind of look back at horror and say, what films have only have two of them, not three, four, five, six, not to the point where they get so convoluted, but just that one sequel to kind of top off the series. So what we've done here is selected three films. We're going to talk about them, and Chris is up first here. What you got for us?
So my choice was a very classic Stephen King movie. It is Pet Cemetery from 1989. I'm going to read the back of the Blu-ray here for the description. It says, after moving to an idyllic home in the countryside, life seems perfect for the Creed family, but not for long. Lewis and Rachel Creed and their two young children settle into a house that sits next door to a pet cemetery, built on an ancient Indian burial ground. Their mysterious new neighbor, Judd Crandall, hides the cemetery's darkest secret until a family tragedy brings the secret to life. Now, an unthinkable evil is about to be resurrected. So, I have watched this movie so many times growing up as a kid. I watched it as a kid, as a teen, as an adult, and this movie to me gets better every single time that I watch this movie. And I was telling Mike about this because I talked a little bit about it after I watched it. This time around, watching it, I watched it on my phone with my headphones in, sitting very close to my phone at night with the lights turned out. And I felt more immersed into this story and the characters than I ever have been before. And I don't know if it was because I had my headphones in and I was like so close to it watching it, or if it's just watching it newly for the first time in about probably 8 years or so. But I really love the story. I think it is very, very depressing. It's a really, really dark film. From the opening of the movie, you have this very, very kind of ominous music playing with children talking about their pets' names, with their cemetery, with the headstones of all the dead animals and everything. So, like right off the bat, you're starting off with death, and just the movie just continues with the theme of death throughout the entire movie. And it's one of those things where, like, if you're watching it, don't look at it to be like a very happy story because it's one of the saddest, darkest stories you can think of. And with it, you have Judd Crandall takes his two kids and his wife to move into the new house. They find the cemetery or the road that leads to the cemetery, where Judd Crandall takes them, and they discover why there's a cemetery back there because of the road that has the giant 18-wheeler trucks going up and down it all the time, and they end up killing a lot of animals. So they always bury them down the street in the pet cemetery. I was also telling Mike about this that I think Judd Crandall is the villain of this story. He knows about the pet cemetery. He knows what lies beyond the pet cemetery, in which he then shows Judd Crandall, sorry, which Judd Crandall shows the Creed family what lies beyond the pet cemetery. And he even tells them everything that happens except the main stuff, the things like the horrible aspects of what happens when you bury something in the pet cemetery. And so just by showing the Creed family this this land, the evil's already starting to work its magic. So the little girl in the movie, her name is Ellie Creed. Her cat dies. It gets hit by one of the trucks. So Judd shows him, says, "Hey, your cat's dead. You don't want to go down that road." And he he takes him to the pet cemetery and says, "We're not going to bury it in the pet cemetery. We're going to bury it beyond the pet cemetery." Dr. Creed doesn't understand why we're doing it, but goes along with it anyways, I guess out of curiosity. Cat comes back. Doesn't come back to normal as it usually is. It comes back kind of an evil cat, but it takes a little while to get there. It's not like immediately goes on a killing spree. It actually kind of takes a little bit of time for it to be evil. And I'll tell you one thing, Tyler, that fucking cat is the scariest cat in the history of horror films or is history of film in general. I don't know what it is about that cat, but it freaking terrifies me. Just the like it's real. They use a real cat. They put the makeup on it to make it look like it's been dead before. It's got these glowing eyes, and I don't know if it's just the actual reflection of the cat itself or they put contact lenses in it, but those eyes like reflect like this bright yellow anytime the camera is on it after the cat has died. And it's really, really creepy and ominous. And then also the cat is hissing and everything. It's got that, black cat. It looks like it's a grayish cat, but it kind of looks like that, like a Halloween-esque type cat. So it's a very creepy animal anyways. Um, but anyways, the cat comes back, so you know what Judd's thinking. Has any or what Dr. Creed's thinking? Has anybody ever buried a person up there? Judd Crandall explains that no, nobody's ever buried a person up there. Who would ever think about doing that?
Why would you mention?
And yeah, why would anybody ever think about that? That's stupid. And so because of bringing the cat back, it's got to take something in return. So later in the story, you see that the Creed's family little boy, which is what, 2, maybe 3 years old, if that, probably 2, and wanders off into the middle of the road. And you think you know what's going to happen if you haven't seen it before. You think you know what's going to happen, but you don't want it to happen at the same time. And then it does happen. And I will say this, watching it as an adult, first off, I have a daughter named Ellie, so it's really weird that the main character in this one is also named Ellie. We also have a gray cat, which is kind of strange as well.
Your
Um,
life is cemetery.
yeah, but you find out that the kid gets hit by the semi truck, and it is extremely sad. Like just even watching it now, it's very emotional because the kid's a really cute little kid. He's very, very cute. He's very loving. You see that the family has a lot of love for him and everything. And then it cuts to a flashback of, him being held as a baby. And you hear the dad screaming no over top of the entire like montage of flashback of like the pictures of the kid and everything. It's just a very sad moment. Um, but we get all this. We know what's going to happen. We know he's going to bury the kid in the pet cemetery. So from there, the kid comes back as usual, and it just leads from one bad thing to the other with the evil kid killing the family and one by one doing its thing. But the reason I think that Judd is the evil, like he's the villain, is because he, like I said, he knows everything about it. He's been there. There's a flashback where he tells Dr. Creed, I've been there. I've done this. This is what happened. Somebody did bury a person up there, and this is how they came back, and we had to take care of the situation. So knowing all this information and still going over there and giving him the information, telling him what can happen, and just by knowing the fact that the cat came back allows that if something bad is going to happen, that they're going to turn around and his son died, so obviously he's going to put his son there. You already gave him the ability to do it once. Why would you not let him do it for that? So I'm rambling on. I know. I apologize. I have a horrible time explaining movies that I like for some reason. But the movie itself it's very, very dark. It's very sad. and it's just dreary the entire time. A lot of people think that the acting in the movie is very stale, but I don't. I think it is spot on with the acting because everybody says that the main character, Dr. Creed, played by Dale Midkiff, like he shows no emotion. Like they're like, oh, it's bad acting. He's not showing any type of emotion anywhere. I beg to differ because A, he's a doctor. He sees death all the time. People die on him on a daily basis. If that's the case, you're not going to show normal emotions during normal situations because that's over you on a daily thing. Like you can't be going from someone just dying on you to go have a family picnic and be all happy giddy about it. It's not going to happen, you know. So I think like his portrayal of the doctor who is always seeing death and just the way he acts, I think it's spot on, and I think it's very normal of acting. The one thing that I do like that most people remember from the movie is Judd Crandall is played by Fred Gwynn, who most people would know as Herman Munster, and he plays an amazing role. And as I was saying, you don't want to go down that road. He says that about 18 times in the opening scene of the movie. Like literally, the first dialogue that he says is, "What's that road? You don't want to go down that road. Stay on the road." It's like over and over for the first like 18 lines that he says, which is really funny. But all in all, I think this movie is really, really good, really creepy, and a very classic Stephen King movie. And I've read the book. The book is a little bit different. It's a lot. I don't know if you guys have read the book or not, but there's a lot more to it in the book. There's the scene in the movie where Dr. Creed goes to dig up his son and to take him to the pet cemetery. And in the book is really gory. It talks about how like the maggots are like pouring off the dead kid's body as he's like picking him up from the grave and everything. And that's none of that's shown in the movie. It's very, how do I put this? It's very PG-esque of how it's displayed in the film, as opposed to the book is a very adult, like mature version of that story. It's very, very gory. Um, this would be one that I would recommend to kids, like to watch as a kid, maybe around like 10 or 11 years old. It's there's no nudity in it. There's hardly any language in it. It's all based on atmosphere, which has really good atmosphere. It feels like a dream, and it's got some really horrifying images in it, especially with the dead kid, the Zelda scene. People say that that scene with Zelda is one of the scariest like moments in horror movie history. I was never affected by the Zelda scene. I was always more terrified of the cat than anything. But what do you guys think about the movie before I move on?
Don't fuck with Native American burial grounds. That's always the
Yeah,
first thing you should not do in a horror movie. But no, I think it's great. I think that you have a really interesting opinion about Judd. I love his character. I think he's great. The way he does talk is a little bit comical too, which always is nice.
Yeah, but
But
that's his normal voice though. That's how he actually
yeah,
speaks.
yeah, for sure. And I mean, he's perfect for that role for that reason because he kind of has that, the accent really works well for his character as well.
Yeah,
So that's great. I think that I don't know if I could call him the villain though. I think that I know where you're coming from with it, but at the end, if you think about it, when he goes into the house and the little boys, I mean, obviously he knew what's gonna happen. You've already said that.
yeah,
And he gets to the point where he's at the very, very end and he walks into the house and then he's almost lured by the little boy. And obviously he's like that scene there with the Achilles tendon where he like slits it
oh man,
around and like what he like rips his like mouth open and like eats through his like fucking Adam's apple. It's crazy. But yeah,
yeah,
that it's a very intense scene. And I think that he only wanted in a way, I feel like he only wanted the best. I don't think he wanted to see, obviously he was so affected, the dad was by the fact that knowing that he's gonna have to tell the little girl that the cat died. And I think that he in the moment may have thought, if I could just somehow bring this cat back, I don't have to explain to my wife, the kid, because we have this whole holiday coming up. I don't want to, hurt them or anything. And he's like, well, I know a place. Then he brings him there, and then the burial takes place, and then obviously church comes back, and he's not the same. But then later on, he explains to him, do not bury a body there because this has happened before, and back, they ended up having to like set the house on fire with the boy still in it, and he came back, he was acting different, everything was completely going wrong. So definitely do not bury a body there. And he warned him that. And he still proceeded, obviously. You're not thinking about burying a body there, are you? You're not thinking about doing it, are you? And he ended up doing it.
Yeah. Well,
That's
the thing is like he okay, so he had this happen to him several times. It shows that Judd buried his dog a long time ago,
Mhm.
and the dog came back evil, and he had to put the dog down.
Right.
And then when he was an adult, the same thing happened when somebody else buried their kid out there, and the kid came back, and they had to deal with it again.
Mhm.
But it's been a long time that you would think that he's been there since the time that he was like an early kid, like not kid, but like early 20s. That's how old he looks at that time period, early 20s in the flashback. Um, to whenever he's living there now, when he looks like he's probably like in his late 60s, early 70s, maybe. And
Yeah.
whenever they go to bury the cat, it's nothing but just like falling down trees and everything. And Lewis even says, I don't think we should go past the pet cemetery. We don't know how to get up there, and we could fall and break our neck. And Judd says, no, just follow me. I know exactly where to step. I've been here and I've done this 1,000 times. So
Exactly.
he's gone there. He knew. It's almost like he goes there over and over again, just waiting for somebody to have this situation happen so that he can take them up there. It's like he's the reason why that's all happening.
That is true. I never thought of it that way before. Now you're mentioning it. It does kind of make sense, but then at the same time, he's like very, I mean, obviously he can be deceptive and all that, but with Gage, he just seemed like he really truly had that connection with family. But then he did warn them, but it was after the fact. So I don't know if we could call that, he was the antagonist. Maybe it just came across that way. Maybe it wasn't meant to be that way, but that's just how it translates to the screen. But yeah, that's definitely an interesting viewpoint on it. And people are scared to death of Zelda. They're always talking about, Zelda, what's the scariest thing about Pet Cemetery? And I have to agree with you, Chris. Not even the cat. I think it was actually the what's his name? Is it Timmy?
Pascal?
No, no, yeah. Wait. Yeah, the jogger. Is that his name?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yes,
Pascal.
yes, yes.
The jogger, which actually becomes like a really prominent role in the story, kind of.
He's
Very
the hero. He's the one that tries to save everybody and stop everything from happening.
Yeah, and then just to see that
Yeah.
image of like his like head getting gashed and then seeing the ghost come back, that very first couple like interactions, it's pretty spooky. Like it's pretty scary. Like I mean, he warns like the grounds are sour before he like disappears, and that's a pretty terrifying scene. That's kind of what makes this more supernatural. Like that's like a blatant supernatural element to this because if
Yeah.
you look at Pet Cemetery, it doesn't have a lot of like in your face horror moments. And I think that you're right. It's made kind of for like the not necessarily young kids, but it definitely could be kind of like the next step from gateway horror. And it's just because there are a couple disturbing scenes, there are a couple of moments of horror, but if you look at it, this is really kind of a family drama. It's about loss. It's kind of a theme we've talked about all night long. A lot of the horror movies are bringing up has to do with this, but dealing with the loss of a child, which I mean, I've never lost a child before, but I can imagine how horrible that would be. Dealing with, losing a family pet, not knowing what to tell your kid. It's just like a very tragic, very hard to deal with kind of thing. And I think that's kind of like the heart of the story. It's the driving force behind it. It's what really it's more than just horror. Is really just about a family. And that's what I really love about this. And I think that's kind of like why it stands so long, like how this has become a very prominent horror movie over the years and people still talk about it today. And I mean, it very well could be because it's Stephen King and everybody kind of has that King association. But just as a film, I mean, it does have so much heart to it. And I know King's work does have a lot of heart anyway in his writings, but I think that's kind of like the alluring thing about this. That's why you'd want to come back and see it over and over again. So yeah, solid. I mean, what do you think about it, Mike?
This is yeah, like just for horror in general. This hits a lot of levels. Especially, I've watched this movie for years. I watched it as a teen. early 20s, and now late 30s. And I think it hits me in different phases. So, like, when I first watched it, I was terrified because of just bringing back, you know, the dead, basically. But I can see it being my age now because, you know, God forbid there was a situation in my life where I almost lost my son,
Mhm.
and I don't know what I would have done if I did. So, like, me as a father, in the view of the eyes of what was his name, Dr. Lewis, was it Creed, Dr. Lewis Creed?
Lewis Creed. Yep.
Yeah. So I could see a father wanting to bring back their child, no matter what the outcome would be, to see them again, to hug them again, even if that was not your normal child. So it's a movie of like sadness, it's depression, it's heartbreaking, it's terror, but it's more of a, kind of like what you said, Tyler. It's more of a drama, and to me, this is one of the best top. This is top tier horror movie in my eyes. I fully enjoy this movie. Um, I can agree with Lax. I never really looked at this movie in a way of thinking Judd was the bad person. But he was always kind of steering them in like, don't do this, but this is where you can go to bring people back to life. I mean, like, he, honest to God, he should have probably just never mentioned it to him. Didn't know him, didn't shouldn't have even have mentioned it, but he did. So
It'd be like somebody saying, "Hey, don't do drugs, but here's the phone number to somebody who sells drugs in case you ever need it." Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's the first thing he says to him. He's like, "I know a place." I'm like, "Okay, nice
Yeah,
to meet you."
yeah,
yeah,
and like right when he first met him, and then again, I kind of got a knock on Dr. Lewis Creed because, man, like, he started it all really with the cat. You know, he kind of went spiral down with the cat, and then, like, who the hell doesn't pay attention to their child when you have an interstate or a main road right there? He turns his back, kid runs away, and like, my thing is, I guess me as an overprotective father, if I know there's a main highway there, I'm not letting my son or my daughter out of my sight. Honestly, probably I, I know when I go to a grocery store, my son or my daughter has to be in front of me, you know, so they're not behind me. Somebody can't run up. I just thought the father in this movie was shitty, not a good father at all, really, on the aspect of caring for his child, irresponsibility of, like, you know, of the small things around the house. Now I know he had a prominent job. I mean, he was a doctor,
His
but
priorities were messed up. Like he
exactly,
prioritized
he
his
was
job over his
focused. He
family.
was so focused on his job and not his family.
Mhm.
Um, so there's that, and then, you know, and then Judd, like, I liked his character. I like, you know, but when Lax kind of told me about, like, think about him as being the bad guy, I never really thought of that. And now when I watched it this last time, I can't really unsee that. He
yeah.
is kind of like, yeah, the bad guy.
Well,
And
he
listen to
admits he
this.
is too. Like he's like,
Let
"I'm
me
Yeah,
throw let me throw this at you guys. When Judd, okay, whenever the cat dies, we
I'm not gonna
never
catch it.
see we never see the cat get hit. The
Yeah,
only thing we see is the cat on the ground, which doesn't look like it was hit by a car. It's just dead, you know. It does have a broken neck. That's about it, right?
Judd killed
Judd's
it.
the one that found it. Judd's the one that called Lewis Creed. Do you think Judd killed the cat on purpose so that he would take him to the pet cemetery? He would have a reason
Man,
to take him there.
but here's the thing, like, so it kind of backfired on him, though. You know what I mean? Kind of like, so we're Gage kind of ultimately ended Judd's life. Wonder if what, like, did it give him the story? I don't even remember. God, this shows. So, like, they brought back a child earlier in his life, right? How old was
Yeah,
Judd then?
like he was probably in, like, at least he looks like he's in his like 20s.
Okay,
also
here's
he
a
was like
way
a
of thinking of
kid,
it.
like 10 or 11."
Could have been his kid?
No.
No,
No. Okay,
they talk about it. It was like the neighbor's like kid who went off to war
gotcha,
and died at war.
gotcha, gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha, gotcha. Okay. No, I mean, because, I mean, what might have, like, I guess what I was kind of getting around, possibly what could have possibly pushed him over the edge of to be evil. You know what I mean? Did he lose someone? Did he lost? Did what created this monster? You know.
Yeah, 100% there.
But I mean, I love the movie. Don't get me. I'm not bashing it about all means.
No, no, no,
Pet
not at all. Did,
Cemetery. Yeah.
did you guys know that this is I don't know if it's common knowledge, but the Zelda scene, the person that plays Zelda is actually a
As a
guy.
dude. Yeah,
Yeah,
dude.
Oh yeah, you can kind of see those details in the movie as well.
Rachel, I'm
Rachel.
coming, Rachel.
Well, I mean, talking about Rachel too, that last scene. I know we talked about loss, and throughout the movie, you see obviously what's his name, the little boy, Gage.
Gage.
Gage. Yeah.
It's been like
Oh, I forgot to
losing
tell you this. I don't mean to interrupt you, but like I said,
it.
we have a gray cat, right? I have a daughter named Ellie. I have a cousin named Gage.
Oh my God. You are Pet
Yeah, it's
Cemetery.
it's strange.
Do you live close to a cemetery?
I do actually.
You are
Do
fucked.
you?
Yeah.
But what I was trying to say about Rachel was at the very last scene, you can see that desperation, just to bring her back, and he like wants to have her back. And I have to admit that it was like a very surreal moment to watch, like Rachel come in, him just being so happy. It doesn't matter, like her fucking eye was like oozing out this like brown like pus crap. She was like bleeding, and she's like, ah, and like making all kinds of like crazy noises. And he was just like, Rachel, I'm just so happy, like, that you're here with me. And he like grabs her and just starts like kissing her. And that's obviously whenever she pulls out the knife, but he didn't even care. He had nothing else to
Yeah.
live for at that point. He loses,
Yeah.
all the family pets. He
I,
loses
th-
his son.
I think he wanted to die at that moment. You know what I mean? In a
I
way.
mean, maybe, yeah. I would have to say. I mean, I couldn't imagine.
Leading up to that scene, though, is actually one of my favorite moments from the entire film. It's when, okay, so Judd wakes up after Gage comes back and he kills Rachel and he kills Judd. I don't know if you noticed this or not, but Lewis Creed is asleep and he falls out of the bed and he slams his head in the freaking side table, like next to like the nightstand. I don't know if you noticed that or not, but that looked like it freaking hurt. I don't know if it was planned, like if that was made there, like he's supposed to do that, but he rolls out of bed and slams like his temple into the side of the table. Anyways, so he goes over, he finds out that Gage has come back, and he goes and he sees that he took his knife from his medicine bag. So he goes and gets the meat for the cat, and he lays the cat outside the house, or lays the meat outside the house. And Church comes and starts eating the meat. And Lewis gets down on his knees and he screams at the top of his lungs. He's like, "Play dead, be dead!" And then the cat like chokes on the meat and falls over and dies. That scene right there, for some reason, just the way it plays out with him screaming at the cat, like such emotion and such hate for something to be dead, and the fact that his son came back, evil, um, always stuck with me. It was one of my favorite moments from the movie, even watching it this go around as well. I loved that scene, just the way it played out.
I really like the part where he tripped over the dead rat in the bathroom. It
That's probably the worst scene in the movie, by
was
the way.
the worst thing. The guy, like, you just get out of the bath and your feet are wet and you step on a dead rat. Like, oh my God. Disgusting.
So what do you
But yeah, man.
so go ahead, Mike.
Oh no. I was about to say, what do you guys rate it?
I'll let Chris go first because I know this movie is very special to you.
I really love this movie. I love the story, even just the idea, because like I said, I read the book growing up. I read the book during school. I watched the movie multiple times as a kid, multiple times as a teenager. I really just the story itself is what I really care about. I don't care if it's the movie version or the book version. I just really like that story, and um, it stuck with me throughout the years. And I always want to go back and revisit it. I always want there to be more movies and more stuff about it. Um, I give this movie a 10. I really love this film.
No way. That's one of
Yep.
our very few tens.
Hmm.
I see. I love the movie. I don't think it's on the same level that You love it, but I do. I mean, I think that everything about everything we've talked about. That's, I mean, it's a great film for what it is. Um, I would probably give it an 8 out of 10.
It's a fair rating.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I really enjoyed this movie. Like I said, watching it differently over the years and like different perspectives, it's it's um it's like I can't say anything bad about it. I got some like make a little bit of fun of it on some situations in the movie, but overall, like it's a top tier horror movie. So for me, at least, I'm gonna be in between. It's not a 10 for me. Eight's definitely respectful. But I'm gonna give it a 9. I really enjoyed this movie overall. I loved it.
So we have 18, 26,
27,
27,
27.
27. So that's actually really good. That's one of our highest ratings that we've given on the show. I mean, I think rightfully so. I mean, it's definitely up there
It's
with one of the best King adaptations.
definitely agreed.
But another King adaptation. Well, first of all, I want to apologize to both of you. And the reason being is that I picked a 3-hour film, the longest
It
film.
took me 84 years to finish this one.
It
It's
took me two. It took me two watches, like two different days to watch your film, Tyler.
well, see, it was I almost didn't choose it, and I just really wanted to talk about this because I think it is grossly underseen. I think it's overlooked. And there's a lot to really talk about with this. I mean, there's just tons to unpack. And I think the biggest thing is it kind of fits into this weird gray area because it was technically released as a television series. I mean,
Yeah,
or
miniseries.
miniseries.
Yeah,
But it was shot by Toby Hooper as a film, and they just kind of split them right down the middle. They knew it was obviously going to be for CBS when it first came out, but they didn't necessarily know the logistics of if it was going to be a television film, if it was going to be a short, kind of like miniseries. So it actually was taken apart two episodes, two 1.5 hour long episodes, and they just put them together to make Salem's Lot as a film. So that's something kind of like interesting about it. Again, it was made for television, so it does have that very slight, but I think you can barely even tell television quality to it. But we essentially have this writer, and if you listen to this kind of like storyline I'm telling here, it has very gothic undertones, and that's something that's very particular about King's writing and about this film in general. So think about the time, this is in the late 70s. Stephen King hasn't even become a major writer at this point. They pick up the series as, 2 episode kind of thing. Before he even's truly famous, they had just made Carrie like 2 years before De Palma did. And they turn around, they find, have Toby Hooper, which recently just came off the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and they're like, let's make a Salem's Law adaptation. And there's this writer named Stephen King, and he's wrote this book, and it was successful. Let's do it. So we have this very gothic overtone. It takes place in Maine, which is where Stephen King is from, and literally, it's just about a writer that goes back to this Maine town, known as like Jerusalem's Lot, and wants to buy this old Mears house, and it's supposedly, kind of like to reignite a spark in his head, to kind of like get this book finished. Now, the town itself kind of is very weary about him being there. There's somebody who bought the house from underneath him and is now technically like living in it, but it's been empty for decades. So there's a very mysterious quality to it. You have almost like, we watched the movie The Changeling. This changes kind of versions of horror throughout. So the first like hour, it's just kind of like, where are they going with this? What's going on? And then you learn of Ben Spears, and he's obviously like an ancient vampire, and he wants to turn this entire town of Salem's Lot, Maine, into like an army of like vampires at some point. But before that, it starts out kind of almost like a supernatural gothic kind of style, ghost story almost. I don't know exactly what you call it. It has a lot of different elements to it. So there's just so much to talk about with this. What did you guys think? Because I never really talked about this with anybody before. You don't really hear anybody talk about it, but there's just so much to it. I mean, it's constantly changing.
Um, I I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it. I think I'm me personally. I can't really give it a fair. This is the first time I've ever seen it, to be honest with you. So it's definitely an older movie, obviously, and I definitely respect Stephen King, and I love how he, you know, I love how he makes his movies, and I love like the interest of like I was very interested in even in the beginning of the movie. The first 60 minutes, not much happens in the movie, but I was still interested and it still had my attention. And I was like, guy comes to town, I like how the town people don't really trust him, don't know what's going on. I like how he's trying to investigate the town and he's all about this house, but there's not much that happens in that first, God, maybe hour and hour and 20, 15 minutes, but I was so interested. Then I will tell you this, it did terrify me. And if I saw it when I was probably 10 or 8, the little boy floating throughout outside the window,
Mhm.
is creepy as fuck.
Scraping
I'm
the
just saying,
window and trying to
scraping it,
get in.
and like let me in, because
Yeah.
obviously it's a vampire and he has to be welcomed in. So that was creepy. And for it to be, what was it, in the 70s? Was it late 70s?
This was
Was
late
when this
70s.
Okay, so late 70s. The vampires, makeup and all, I thought was phenomenal. I will give you that. The main vampire in the movie, I
Joker.
liked how his fangs. Yeah, I loved how his fangs were in the middle. I dug it. I liked it. It was different. Um, but it was a little long. But I can see like how it's kind of like resembles it. It was like a two-part series. Probably 60 minutes, hour and a half one night, and the other portion the other night, or
Mhm.
a week later on TV. I get it. I know how Stephen King does his shows sometimes, but um, a little long for me at least. A little long, a little slow. But the second half, so the last probably 45 minutes of the movie, hour of the movie, really enjoyed. The house, once they got inside the house, it was really creepy. It was like falling apart. Not that I could smell the movie, but it was like when they walked in, it felt like man, I bet that place stinks. Like it looks like it smells.
It was
But
extremely atmospheric for that. Like it
it
just
was, yes,
the
yes,
lighting. I
yes,
think this was made for television, and to know that a television movie can show this level of like showmanship and be able to be atmospheric and scary and weird and have the ghost story aspect and the writer aspect, this abandoned kind of like Marsden house.
exactly. I loved it all. And I guess if I can only think of a couple words to say about it, like unsettling, creepy. Like it was very unsettling. It was very creepy, but just a smidge of me wanted a little more. Now, um, but I still overall really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was done very well. And for me to watch a late 70s movie now, which I still respect older horror movies, which I do respect this movie, um, I thought the vampires were done extremely well. The kid floating out beside the window will I'll always remember it. It's creepy.
That's a great
It was
scene.
one of those things. Yeah, I mean, it's terrifying to be honest with you. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the movie. I did. What about you, Lex?
I'm on the same verge as you, Mike. I thought it was a little slow. As you guys said, the first hour to hour and a half, nothing really happened. It was just a TV drama where somebody's trying to investigate a situation. They're going from place to place, talking to people, figuring out what's going on, and that part was it was like Mike said, it's still really interesting. You like the characters. It's very atmospheric. You get that small town, unsettled feeling about it, and it keeps you wanting more. But like I said, it was a really slow movie, and the one thing that bothered me the most about it being slow was a lot of the scenes. was basically the same scene like over and over and over again. Like even the scenes that were really entertaining, like the scene with the vampire kid floating outside the window, they did that like four separate times, and it was very slow. To each one of those scenes was about 5 or 6 minute long, like it lasted 5 or 6 minutes in each one of those scenes. It wasn't anything quick, something quick happens. It was every little thing that happened was very slow paced. Everything like somebody walking from the house to their car, they showed them exiting the house, getting to the car, getting in their car, and then driving away. It was just very, very slow, but entertaining at the same aspect. I think it's the story and the atmosphere that made it really interesting. There's one scene about the hour and 10 minute marker, maybe an hour marker, where these two guys are who are like delivery drivers. They're tasked with going and delivering this big box, this big wooden crate to this basement of this house.
I love that.
And while they're delivering it, they find out that the crate is cold and like they're holding it and they can't touch it because it's so cold. They put it in the back of the moving van and it's slowly like moving forward to the actual like uh, truck part of it where the window is,
Cabin part.
and it's yes, the cabin part. It's very, very because you don't know what's going to happen. You think something's going to pop out of the crate. You think they're going to get in there and open the crate. You don't know what's going to happen, and it's very interesting. And then when they get to the house, they deliver it. You think something's going to happen there. You think that they're going to, try to get it off the truck and someone's going to attack them. They're getting into the basement. You think they're going to open it. And it's just one thing after another. Even though it's very long. That's like a 25-minute scene that happens throughout the movie. It's split into multiple parts,
Right.
and it's very well done. And it leaves you wanting more. And like I said, it is a made-for-TV movie, so they had to leave something. So you see what's going to happen in night one, and then night two is you find out what happened. So you wanting to go back the next night to watch more.
Right.
And I think that was really well done. And Mike was talking about the house being very atmospheric and like he could smell, like he thought he could smell like what the house smelled like in the inside of it.
Exactly.
I thought the same thing actually, because when you see the inside of the house, I even said to my wife, I said that place looks like it's very moldy. Like,
Yeah,
you just felt
yeah.
like it felt like a very moldy place. So like the atmosphere and the set design was really good. Um,
Just look damp, wet.
Yeah, and the vampires looked really cool. I like the scene when one of the guys has to bury their friend, and like he's outside, he's standing over top the casket, and I guess the vampires like how in most movies the vampires can compel you to do stuff. I
Mhm.
guess you don't even have to look at them in the eye to be compelled. You just have to be near them, because from the
Yeah.
casket, he like the kid yeah, when they're burying the kid gets is inside the casket and he makes the guy walk over and then jump into the ground and open the casket and get him freed. And it was a really cool scene. I really liked that. It was very well shot, very interesting. The vampire looks good. Um, Even the part with the main vampire who technically it's Nosferatu. Like that's what it is. It's a Nosferatu
Yeah,
movie or
Nosferatu.
adaptation or whatever. It's not a typical vampire. It's the traditional Nosferatu tale, just done in the Stephen King style with the expansion of characters and the expansion of just story wise. Uh, I really liked it. I thought it looked really good. I thought the atmosphere was great. The tension was there. The effects were good. Um, the whole build up around the end of the movie where the main character goes into the house to save his like love interest from the vampires, and if you remember there's a scene where they're all like inside the basement area like locked in this little cabinet door, and they get out of it, they lock the door behind them, but then there's the one vampire still there and they're trying to kill Nosferatu, and the little kid is like up against the door, and you see in the background like the other vampires crawling toward the door. At what he has his back to him though, so all you see is like over his shoulder, while the main guy is trying to kill Nosferatu, and you don't know like whether or not they're going to get to the kid before he kills Nosferatu. You don't know what's going to happen. I thought that was a very intense moment and very interesting to see, and I really liked that part of it. Only thing I didn't like is it went on a little longer than I thought, because after the main story ends, then it still has like 15 minutes left of them like traveling around the world, and they're like
Yeah.
trying to like run away from the instead of like just being there and killing the vampire, They just run. They're like, okay, we killed Nosferatu. There's still more vampires. Let's just run and never look back and just try to avoid them from now on. Like it didn't make any sense of why they didn't just stop and try to kill the last remaining vampire and then let it be.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think in Draker, as just like you mentioned, like the Nosferatu style vampire, I think that it was such a great choice because he's very iconic in the movie, like that image of him, but you only see him a couple times. So like this entire movie is kind of just based on like that sole image of like, this is what Draker looks like. And you only see him a couple times. Like he doesn't come out until like what, almost 2 hours in, almost. Like you don't see the true image. So I think it's just insane. And also, I think that another thing, like you mentioned, you guys are talking about like the small town feel of it. I
Yeah.
think exactly what they were going for. I think that that's why the first hour of the film kind of seems like it goes on for a while, is because they're really introducing you to each person. Because this isn't really a film about any particular person. It seems to me like it feels like one of those movies, almost Twin Peaks style, to where it's not necessarily about the vampires or any kind of like a ghost story or any kind of like ghost writers or a spooky old house or loss or anything like that. It's really about collaboratively everybody within this town. And it's felt that way very much because it seemed like obviously you have your main stars throughout, but then he just wanted to turn the whole it was centered around, turning the entire town into vampires.
Vampires. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
like it just
I can describe the feeling of the movie in two separate ways. The first half of the movie feels like an episode of Murder She Wrote. And then the second half of the movie feels like it belongs in a different movie that characters from another movie are watching on TV.
I could see that. It's a
Yeah.
very weird feeling as well. Like the entire movie, like it's just like it's so all over the place with it. But I think again, that center is this is a horror movie centered on the town of Jerusalem's Lot, Salem's Lot, so have you. And that's kind of like where this thrives. And I mean I love films like that. And I feel like just like Mike was saying, this was came out in the late 70s, and this was before Stephen King became popular. So leading up through this adaptation, this book, and everything about Salem's Lot kind of inspired later films, like late, I mean, all through the 80s and 90s, television shows and everything. Like I mentioned, Twin Peaks, for example, we see like really shows and long form entertainment based around a town. And that's what I love about it. I just love like Stephen King's vibe whenever he writes about towns. Like even Pet Cemetery in a way kind of felt like it was like about the town, you know what I mean? Like it was a
Yeah,
very small portion, but you still seem that kind of like, you know, you have it, like Mike mentioned earlier. That's the town of Derry. It's solely about you. You don't just. It's not just about Pennywise and the kids. You see all around that town, like, and you start meeting people, and like it really feels like small town America. And
yeah.
Salem's Lot,
And
he did it again.
Salem's Lot. And then in when he does movies like Needful Things, it's like Castle Rock, the town of Castle Rock. It's all these
Yes.
small town where everything is that the town is the center of the horror, not the
Mhm.
people.
Exactly. And this is what seemed like it was the first one because obviously he did Carrie right before this. Carrie did have a little bit of small town feel, but this was the first true Stephen King movie that really kicked off like the towns. I feel like without this, without a Salem's Lot, I feel like we wouldn't have later works like It and things like that from him be so centered around the town as it is if it wasn't for Salem's Lot succeeding so well. That really kicked off the career, and you have to show like a great deal of respect for what that did for generations of horror past that. And I think for a television adaptation and for an early Stephen King, they did a great job. I mean, I felt the atmosphere. Again, this is Toby Hooper. He was a young filmmaker. It was after Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It was a television movie. I mean, there's obviously been some great television movies. I mean, what was it? Legend of Hell House, wasn't that one a television,
Hmm.
and that's a
Yeah.
great television movie. 70s had some really good television moments to it, and I think this was definitely one of them. So overall, I mean, I have to give this like an 8. high eight, maybe even a nine. Like I'm saying like it's a very, very high eight. Just for what it is and how interesting it is and how it does bring that small town America vibe and how it really changed Stephen King's career and horror in the future. There's just so much to it.
Yeah. I'm not sure if cutting any of the small parts out of like the first half would make it any of a better of a movie. Because usually when it's something that's like really long or really boring, you're like, oh, if they could have just edited this down to like a 90-minute film, it'd be much better. But I don't think it would work that way because the way that the characters are made and just like the atmosphere that it develops from that length of the film, I think it's even though it is boring and that does have an effect on my rating for it, I think it's needed to have the main story be more entertaining. And so with that, because of the boringness of the first half, um, I I think there could have been a lot more to it. Like Mike said earlier, he wanted more from it, and I'm the same way. I wanted more from this, but I liked what I saw. I gave it a 7. So
That's a pretty fair rating, yeah.
I was going to say, yeah, you really can't take anything away out of this movie after now seeing it. I mean, I did mention earlier, yeah, if you cut out 30 minutes or 40 minutes, but I think it would have taken too much out of the what they were trying to get out of this movie or make out of this movie. Um, I was fully invested in the characters, the town, even though, like, kind of what like I said, it was very slow in the beginning, but I was still interested. I was still entertained. Something kept me like wanting to know more. But I wish more would have happened, I guess. And I don't even know. I guess that's kind of contradicting, but I wanted a little bit more out of it. Um, I enjoyed it. I loved it. Would I sit down and watch it again? Probably. But it was missing a little something for me. And I keep going back and forth. Is it a
There's a lot
seven?
to
Is it
go
an
back
eight? Is it
to.
six? Yeah, and there is. I was like, is it 7, 6, 7, 8? I'm gonna go with lax. It's too good to be a 6. I think it needed to be a little more to get to an 8 for me. So I give it a 7.
I think it's pretty fair. I think that I mean it's interesting to know that they're making another one apparently, or they've already made
Oh wow,
another one. So I don't know how that one's gonna go because I don't think it's gonna be a 3 hour film. So I don't know if they're
gotcha.
gonna kind of like cut right to, wanting to buy the house and it not be available and like, oh, what's going on? Maybe that would have helped. But again, I think that having that 1 hour kind of opening, not even montage, how would you even say like the hour opening to the town and kind of introducing everybody and what's going on. I do feel like that kind of like really helped later on, like Chris was saying, with the story overall. So I don't know if they cut that out of the new movie, which I think they probably did. Um, who knows? So we'll see. I don't even know if the new movie is coming out anymore because it was filmed in like was it like 2021 or something? Or they were trying to film it.
Oh,
It was supposed to come out right after Pet Cemetery, the newer one, and they were going to film Salem's Lot next. And then I think they did film it. Like I think it's done. And it was shelved and it was supposed to come out in like 2021, 2022, 2023. I don't know where it is or what's going on.
hmm.
I am curious to see because I think this is gonna be I think it was a high budget film. Like it was like 30, $40 million.
I would definitely be interested in seeing that. I really would.
but too, I
Yep.
know that there's a sequel to this one as well. It's called Return to Salem's Lot. There was a remake done. I think it was in like the mid '90s. I think it was, or it might have been even later than that. But it was done. I think Mick Garris did that one as well, like the remake of it. It was a TV version as well. So I'm interested in checking those out. This was a first time viewing for me. I never read the
Yeah,
book, so I couldn't
yeah,
judge anything from that. I don't know why it eluded from me all these years, but I just never did watch it. I don't know if it was
yeah,
because of it being from the '70s, and I just never took the or a min. I think it might have been the miniseries aspect of it. It was just it's a long time to invest, and I just never took the time to do it. But I'm glad I watched
yeah.
it. I'm glad you picked this because even though that it's got a lot of boring stuff to it, and it took a long time to get through, I enjoyed it, and I found myself wanting to see more stuff about this. I want to see I want to see the sequel now. So
Yeah. I mean, it slips through a lot of people's fingertips, like even mine for a long time. It slipped through my fingertips because of the running time. And I mean, it's probably one of the longest horror movies ever created. Like it's definitely in the top 10. So I think that's
I could definitely believe that. Yeah,
well, I think that's why it's so underseen is because no one wants to sit
right.
over 3 hour runtime for Salem's
yeah,
Lot. So they kind of just skip it for that reason. But
and that
definitely,
record top 10 belongs to every single Stephen King adaptation.
yeah, honestly, yeah, It Chapter 2 was close to 3 hours just by itself.
Yeah.
So
Well, Rose Red, isn't Rose
Rose,
Red like a 5 hour movie?
well, Rose Red was a miniseries like Salem's Lot as well. There's been a lot of King adaptations. I think it's because his books are so long. They do
Yeah.
like short series, like Under the Dome. It was a series. They did Castle Rock, which was a series. Rose Red, Salem's Lot. It. What else? Am I missing one? I think that might be all of them. But there's been
Yeah.
they do that a lot, and I think that it's definitely a turn off. But Salem's Lot definitely, I would suggest anybody listening to this check it out, bite the bullet because it's something they're doing something there. They have something. So for
They
sure. So
definitely
you're
do.
at what 7, 14, 22. I've already lost.
Okay. Well, my pick was a newer movie. It was Happy Death Day. Um, so Happy Death Day is basically it's about a college student that must relive the day of her murder over and over again, basically in a loop until like she finds out she finds out who kills her. And I saw this movie when it first came out. I think in what was it, 2017? I'll have to check. Yeah, 2017. So I saw this. Actually, I think I saw this with my sister, and I really enjoyed it in 2017 when I first saw it. Loved it. I was like, man, this is cool. This is hip. This is new. This is definitely a different take on horror. So going into this movie, if you ever seen like Groundhog Day with um God
Bill
I can't
Murray.
think of his name, Bill Murray. Thank you. It's basically kind of resembles that in a horror slash comedy in a way, reliving the same day over and over again until she figures it out. I I really like the chemistry between the main actress and the guy in it. I'll get their names. Jessica Roth and is it Israel? Uh, Her name in the movie is Tree and
Carter.
Carter, or the Carter. And I love their chemistry between each other. And I'll go more into of what the movie's about, but I really want to focus on their chemistry because I think their chemistry really holds this movie together. Um, it's entertaining. There is some comedy. I really like the tree character because she's at first just like this snobby bitch, doesn't care about anything, just the way she looks and who she's hanging out with and how cool she presents herself. And then it's kind of like a life lesson. You keep reliving this day, and she kind of finds out how shitty of an individual she is.
She
What like
doesn't change. She does not change. She's still a shitty person at the end of the movie.
well, okay, so I think so. The moral, like, I think what the movie wanted you to look at, other than yeah, she's a bitch, but she gets better. I guess she learns to,
She learns that there's love in the world.
yes, pretty much. And she's not the only, like, she's not the queen of the university, basically. Um,
She
the
goes,
killer, the,
she starts off, she's like, I'm a complete bitch, but I keep reliving the same day over and over again. Maybe I have to change my ways. Maybe I should be good. That will stop me from having to relive the day. Well, shit, that didn't work. I guess I'll go back to being a shitty person again.
All right.
see, and I thought so. Like with the kills in the movie, or in the movie, I thought they were done pretty cool, pretty creative. There was a part in the bell tower where she jumps down and hangs herself to like kill herself quickly to bring her alive again to live another day. The killer in the movie, the baby face kind of got me. I didn't love the baby face. Now I don't know why. Maybe in 2017 I really loved this movie, and I was looking back and I rated this movie in 2017. I rated it a 9, but rewatching it, uh, it's definitely not my rating now. But I still enjoyed the movie for the most part because if you go into this movie and you expect like defying horror, like bloody, gory, scary, it's not the movie you're going to get. But it doesn't mean this is a bad movie by any means, in my opinion. Um, Relating back to the main characters, I feel like they have the great chemistry together. Um, but it's missing something. I feel like in this movie, I wish it was a little bit darker. I wish it was a little bit more like some extra kills in it or something. It's just it's missing a little. But I want to ask you guys questions first, and then I'll keep going into what the movie's based on. So, kind of give me your input on it.
Okay, so the second the movie starts, you know what kind of movie you're getting into because the the company logo, which is Universal, they're the company that put this out there. When the movie starts, the Universal logo pops up, and then it does the whole repeat thing. It's like da 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 da
Yeah,
da, and it rewinds itself, and it does it like 4 times. So you know right off the bat what kind of movie you're getting into. It's going to be a comical type movie, but the comedy doesn't work. I'm interested in the movie. I like the kills. I think the story is fun with the repeating the same day, Groundhog style over and over again. Her trying to figure out who the killer is. It's interesting to see where they go with it, but they try to make it comical, and the comedy is completely does not fit the tone of the movie whatsoever. And there's a scene where the girl realizes like she can do anything she wants to do and nobody is going to remember it the next day because it's the same day over and over again. So she like literally walks out the door completely naked and like walks around the campus and like doing this little like makes the gun fingers and stuff and points them at people and like squints her eyes like and it was just like the comedy just doesn't work. It's too almost like a parody version of a movie that she's in, and it doesn't. I don't know. I didn't like the way that they did the comedy in it, but I did like the story where she's trying to figure out. And I actually got mad at myself. I the second I'm going to spoil the movie. So if you're listening, haven't seen it, and you don't want to know who the killer is, go ahead and stop listening now because we're going to explain who the killer is. So the second that the when she starts like reliving the day, she wakes up, she goes out of she gets out of the bed, she goes across campus, all this stuff happens. She goes into her dorm room and her roommate is like, hey, I made you a cupcake, and she like takes the cupcake and she throws it in the garbage can. I immediately went, she's the killer. And then I started thinking, like, as the movie progressed, I was like, oh, they're gonna do something, they're gonna have a twist where they're gonna make it like she's the killer. I was like, what they're going to do is it's going to be where she is such a shitty person. She's going to realize that she's the killer and she's trying to stop herself from being such a crappy person. This is the only way to do it. And once she realizes that she's a good person, that she can be a good person, that's going to stop her from, from dying. And so when they revealed who the killer was, I was like, fuck, it's just some random guy in the hospital. Like, that's
yeah,
fucking stupid. And then it realizes that, you realize it's not him. It was actually the
no,
girl all along. And I was like, fuck,
yeah,
now I'm mad that it was the person I chose the first part of the movie.
yeah,
See, I think it was great. I don't really have a problem with the comedy. I more so had a problem with the horror aspect to it because it definitely was not horror, by any shape. I think the closest thing you could say is like it was kind of slashery, but even at that point, it wasn't really too slashery. I do think they planned the gimmick really well, though. I think that it was really cool to see. You don't really necessarily know what's going to be coming next, and each day, as you see her relive it, you can kind of see that comedy come out. And what I thought was like really interesting about the comedy coming out throughout was just like how she was almost sarcastic over it, which kind of like puts back to what Chris said. And she's kind of a bitch. I mean, you know what I mean?
yeah,
So I think that overall, it kind of just put into that kind of trope to her character, like, hey, you know, fuck it. I'm stuck in this time loop for the rest of my life, as far as I know. And I'm just gonna relive the same day over and over and get killed at the end of it. And she's just kind of like embracing it at that point. She's like, you know what I mean? Dun, 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 kind of thing. Um,
Yeah.
but aside from that, the question I have is I don't understand why the hell she was in a time loop to begin with. Even if, the killer wasn't really the killer, and then she was going to get poisoned by the cupcake, and then all this, and then the guy at the beginning, they fall in love at the end. I don't really understand the true point of why it was presented that way.
Yeah, it's never explained.
Yeah, I'm trying
Yeah,
not to,
it doesn't.
I don't really want to question it because I think it makes it like more entertaining. It makes a very lackluster story. Because if you strip away the gimmick of reliving the same day over and over, what story do you have? You have a story of some girl who hooks up with this guy. Well, not really hook up, but what they thought at the time when she was drunk, hook up. Wake up, go, get killed. Turns out it's her roommate killing her instead. And there's a bunch of other logistics. She falls in love with a guy that she supposedly thought she slept with the night before. There's really nothing to the story. It just, I think I looked down after the very first day replayed. It takes 12 and a half minutes just to get through the first day. And then at the hour mark, we're still going and reliving the same scenes over and over from the very beginning. And nothing really happens until an hour and 15 minutes in. And then we have almost like a Saw, like uncovering, like, oh, it was him who did it. Actually, it's them who did it. It's because of this and all of that. So I really don't understand the true point of the film, like at all. And now, Happy Death Day to You, which is the sequel to this one, I want to talk about just real quick too, because if you guys have seen that one, it
Yeah.
actually kind of embraces it a little bit better. And it's not even at this point, it's not even horror. It wasn't a slasher. It was just straight up comedy. And the comedy landed and it did a great job. I'm not saying it's a better film than the first one, but I mean, I think that people understand the format from the first movie and carrying over the second movie and not taking itself serious at all was a lot better than this one, because I think the first one, it takes itself a little bit serious at times. It's like, we're going to make this funny and goofy, and like, we're going to try to attract a young audience, but at the same time, we want this to be a horror movie that has actual stakes. But when they put actual real stakes to it, it doesn't hold up. So did you guys understand anything about why there was a time loop? Because I don't get it. The
I don't think
time.
it explained it. Yeah, I don't think it really
Yeah.
explained it to. It's
Yeah, they
almost kind of
didn't.
like a newer movie of like Clue in a way, like who did it, where, why, what, but it never really explains itself.
And it is
Yeah.
fun. Like, I can't completely just like say, "Oh, that sucks," because it wasn't explained. But at the same time, it's just like it was kind of stupid because it wasn't explained at all. There was no reason for her to be in this time to begin with. But I mean, as
I
the
mean, most of the movie, like the story's been done a million times in the whole time loop thing, and a
right,
majority of the time, like you can figure it out yourself that what Mike was saying, that the reason she's in it is because she needs to make sure that she's a better person. But like in this one, it doesn't happen. She doesn't become a better. Like in most movies, when somebody's stuck in a time loop, they got to figure out why they're in the time loop
she
to
finds
stop it from
love, Chris.
happening.
She finds
And
the
that just it doesn't make any sense while she's in it, but it doesn't necessarily have to be explained. There's another
I,
movie that's from like the late '90s that did this really well. It's a French film called Run Lola Run, and I don't know if you've seen it. It's about these two guys who rob a bank, and the girlfriend of one of the bank robbers wakes up and has to repeat the day over and stop the guy from robbing the bank. It's actually a really, really well version of this movie,
Mm.
of the story. Um, I don't know if I can't remember if the comedy aspect of it, but there's no reason why she's in the time loop, but you just know that she's in the time loop because she needs to figure out how to stop the bank robbery from happening. In this one, she's in the time loop because she has to make herself a better person, which doesn't happen.
Chris.
So it
or
doesn't.
Right
or
now, you're just sounding
or I could
like
see
love. She
this.
found her love.
Or, or I could see this. So it explains briefly that her mother passed away. So it's like accepting her mother passing, and her relationship with her father is like kind of bad, But they kind of rekindle that, when she goes and meets him for lunch or something, and she's like, they kind of talk about his wife and her mom, like, and it kind of gives you the sense of like maybe acceptance, like, hey, she's gone, I'm here for you as a father, and it kind of goes into like off screen, unless it's
I,
something about like a time
I,
loop with like the accepting of the loss or rekindling the relationship with the father. I don't think it is it though, but you could look at it that way.
maybe, but I mean, if we did focus on that point, we did the entire movie over and over and over and over again just to get 3 minutes of her going to her dad to hold his hand for 3 seconds. Like,
Right, and I'm not saying that is it, and it's more than likely not, but that took so many times, and that's actually towards the end of the movie, and it's like they kind of patched that up, and then boom, it's not. I mean, maybe 30 more minutes, the movie's over. So
that's
it's
why I
like,
think the idea that I had that I thought they were going to go with, where it reveals that she's the killer of herself because she's a bad person, I thought would have been much better of a story. Like if she would have been like when they revealed the killer and she would have been the person, she'd have been like, how do I stop myself from becoming this horrible person?
That makes
And
sense.
that would have been the perfect way to tell the story. And that would have been like, oh, I know what I need to do. And she would have rekindled her relationship with her father, fell in love with the boy, made friends with all the people that she had been wrong to, and not had it be where there's her roommate was jealous because she kissed some other guy. Like it, I don't know. It
Well, I think that the idea was they were wanting to keep it lighthearted, to some degree, because
right,
remember, like they almost make a joke out of the whole entire time loop thing. She's like, "Why today?" And they're like, "Was anything happening today?" Blah blah blah. And she's like, "Well, it's my birthday." And he's like, "That's it." And she's like, "Why is it the big deal? It's my birthday." And he's like, "It's symbolic." So it's almost kind of like a joke at that point.
a
Like the
joke,
whole
yeah,
like, "Oh well, you're stuck because
and
it's your birthday."
at the end of it too, if you remember at the end, they're talking to each other, and he goes, "Oh, by the way, have you ever seen the movie Groundhog's Day?"
Yeah.
And I was like, oh,
yeah,
seriously.
yeah, yeah,
But again, that kind of uses that weird, like kind of cheap humor that kind of just really convolutes the entire thing down to the point where it gets almost annoying.
yeah.
Um the gimmick's kind of fun, but I mean, overall, it's just, I mean, we have a film here that just really doesn't make any sense to why.
You know how in most movies, at least most horror comedies, the comedy is played during the same time that something horrific is happening, and that's where like the tone equals out. Well, this one it was almost like we got to show something horrific, which really wasn't that horrific, but and then it's like now stop. Now we have to have a moment of comedy. Now stop the comedy. Okay, now we can go back to having something serious. All right, stop again. We have to have a moment of comedy.
Mm.
There was just it tonally it did not work for me at least. I thought it was just two completely different tones, all just kind of sliced in there at different random times. It didn't fit. There was no overlay of the comedy and horror mixed together.
But again, I don't think it was absolutely insufferable to watch. Like, I think that
No,
they tried to make something that was very lighthearted for the most part, very light on the horror aspects to it. Wanted to make something that was definitely just kind of like a you have fun watching it in a theater, kind of playing along with friends kind of thing. I don't think they did that too well, but they did an okay job. So I'm gonna say overall, it's an okay movie for that reason. It's definitely something that, I mean, it's my birthday. It's my birthday. And that just literally stuck in my head afterwards. So it did something right because I remember, like, you remember that day very well. She wakes
For
up,
sure.
here's misses the call from her dad. The guy's like, "Oh, I was letting you sleep in. I folded your jeans." And like she gets to the point where she's like, "I already know what you're gonna say. I know your name. Don't talk to me," kind of thing. So I think that, it did do something right because you do remember very small details throughout the day. So it replays it very well. So I mean, that was one thing going forward at least.
For sure, yeah.
yeah,
What's
and
y'all's rating on this?
because of that, like as you were saying, I gave it a 5. It's just right there in the middle. It's not terrible. It's not insufferable as you were saying, Tyler. You can watch it. You can probably watch it again. I don't know if I'd want to really, but I mean, I could watch it again if I had to. But I also don't know if I could really recommend this for other people to view as well. So I gave it right there in the middle. It's a 5.
I would recommend watching Happy Death Day to You instead of watching this one again. They're both one and dones. Like they're both films like, oh, I'm glad I saw that. I kind of laughed one or two times. I'm done. You know what I mean? So I think that I would give them both the same rating. I would also give them probably I'm gonna go with I'll go five. Five I think is fair.
Yeah, so I remember mentioning it like when I saw this a long time ago. I have a huge crush on the Jessica, the actress in this movie. For some reason, I've
That's why
always
you
have.
gave it a nine, Mike.
Right. Well, at that time, yes, and like I don't know what it is. I guess rewatching it now, I see how annoying she is, in the movie, and it's like maybe it's where I'm older and I'm just not, vibing with it. But it is a forgettable movie, but you don't if it's on TV and flipping through the channels, you might watch it. It's not a terrible watch, but it's not memorable either. It's it's more of a like you said, a slasher. Not much. It misses with a comedy on it. And I kind of like it shows you how much I have changed and view movies as well from 6, 7, 8 years ago. So
Well,
it
some
did. It
movies
fell
don't age
short.
well either. Like you watch them
Right.
one time and you're like, this is great, and you watch them again, it's like this did not
Like
age.
like what was I thinking? And it's kind of on this movie because I was excited I picked this movie because I haven't seen this in years either. And I was like, man, I'm gonna rewatch this. And when I picked it and I was watching it, I watched this movie first because I was really excited about this. And when I watched it, I was like, wow, like it doesn't give me the same feel like it did, when I first saw it. So I'm right there. I was almost going to give it a 4, but because of Jessica, because I really am digging her, I am giving it a 5 as well.
Because I'll say I'm gonna give it a 10. That's
I'm
why.
going to give it a 10. It's going to get a 12. No, I gave it a 5. I think that's a fair rating.
I mean, I think we're all very. It's kind of interesting because that's 15, but I think it's really interesting that we all three, I think, agreed more than we've
Yeah,
ever agreed before on the show. Like
yeah,
we're
I think
right there,
that's
we're right there in line. So I think that's really cool.
definitely.
So Chris is the clear winner of Fright Fights with Pet Cemetery. I think rightfully so.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, hands down, the guy that drinks his own piss wins. Good job.
I like how Chris is like trying to get like resituated right now. We're just like sitting here.
Yeah.
My headphones died, so I had to change the input setting.
Oh, we were talking very highly of you, man.
Yeah,
Congratulations on the win.
we were
Oh,
just
thank you.
Great job. Great
we're
job.
mentioning the taste level was immaculate. You mean
Yeah, like
I mean,
it, a strong taste of success.
yeah, a strong taste as well.
Pardon, guys. I got to get a drink of urine here real quick.
I'm going to admit, Lax, you got some clear looking urine there. So,
Well, y'all, let's take just a quick moment here. Take a quick break. We're gonna come back in just a second because we have a will to be spit in here for the next time. So we'll see you guys in 1 second.
It's my birthday, and I ain't gotta pick up the phone. Yeah, it's my birthday. Y'all should just leave me alone. It's my birthday. It's my birthday. I ain't picking up the phone on my birthday. It's my birthday. It's my birthday. I ain't picking up the phone on my birthday.
Welcome back, guys, from the short break that we just had, and we are ready to pick our next topic for the next episode. And again, we'll go over all the listings of choices we have for this wheel that we're getting ready to spin for possible topics. We have 80s slasher films, found footage, possession flicks, Clown Town, films from the year you were born, werewolves, Shark Attack, commentaries, interviews, tier ranking, family horror, and John Carpenter films. So the wheel will land on one of these topics, and we will choose movies from that topic. So Tyler, go ahead and spin the wheel.
Okay, here we go. Oh God.
I have a
ah,
question. I have a question though.
What?
Okay, landed on found footage. Didn't we already do a found footage episode?
I thought
we
we did.
did. We did.
You know what? Spin
Let's
it
take it
again.
out.
Here we go.
Spin it again. We're gonna spin it till we want to stop.
We already know what we're spinning till we land on here.
We did because we had
Oh my God! Yes, yes.
John Carpenter films. All right,
Legendary.
I just
Legendary.
added that to the wheel.
I
Already
love
know
that.
I'm picking.
I think I know
what.
what Mike's gonna choose.
Yep. I'm already going to pick. I'll go ahead and tell you on the show here right now. I'm going to pick Halloween 2, the original, in '81. God, it's my all-time favorite.
You know,
And
honestly, do you know what you're gonna choose, Chris? Because we may be able just to straight up say it now. Are you thinking so?
Yeah.
I think so. It depends on what you choose, Tyler.
All right. Well, I'm gonna be choosing. Okay.
Remember, we've already watched The Fog.
All right.
Hey, we could do the thing. That's a good one.
I was gonna say I'm gonna choose The Thing.
Ooh, yeah. That was going to be my second choice right there.
All right, I know what I'm choosing.
All right. So we have Halloween 2.
Yes, yes.
We
The
have
thing.
The Thing, and then Chris
Great choice.
is gonna choose.
They Live.
This is awesome. This is literally
I
this is gonna
cannot
be a good show.
wait
I
to
am
watch this.
so excited. And let me tell you, I will say that The Thing is top 5 horror, and right there with it is Halloween. And then right behind my top 5 horror, They Live is one of my favorite John Carpenter's.
Same. Honestly, all three of these are, I mean, probably Halloween's like, oh, all time. Things into my top probably 3, 5. I mean, and then They Live is, oh my God, a classic. So yeah,
Dude, this is
I'm
awesome.
excited.
Well, I do appreciate everybody for tuning in. I think that the next show we are psyched for. I had a great time tonight talking. Also, I do want to mention that we at the top of the show we mentioned VoidCon. Fright Fights will be there. So if you're in the area of Huntington, West Virginia, that convention will be taking place downtown there. We will have a booth there. We'll be love to chat movies with you. We will sign anything you want us to sign. We'll just be there in presence. So if you want to just hang out, chat some movies, talk to us a little bit, definitely stop by. Don't be shy to say hi. Mike's probably going to be with his girlfriend from
Happy Death Day.
Yes, happy death day.
And listen, we'll let y'all record Lax drink his own urine. So it's going to be great. It's going to be great.
All right. Well, guys, it's been awesome. Definitely looking forward to the next
Yeah.
time. So we'll check it out there. See ya.